Ladies and gentlemen, we have an absolute honor in store here tonight. All I could say is, first of all, we are live in front of a live studio audience, figuratively and literally tonight. Because our guest, while he certainly needs no introduction, he is going to get, I guarantee you, the best introduction he's gotten yet in his decorated career, whether it was in the yard or in the pros. And it's certainly in the pros, he's literally done it all and even wrestled the likes of Hornswoggle, Sonny Kiss, actually in the yard and in the pros. And actually, he wrestled them not too far from where I'm sitting right now as we speak. He's also wrestled arguably maybe the greatest American tag team of all time, the Rock and Roll Express, 2.5 years ago. We'll definitely talk about that match, and we'll even talk about that Canadian destroyer that came out of nowhere. But we'll also talk about many friends of Sportzwire Radio that our guest tonight is going to wrestle for and wrestle against, and especially upcoming in a matter of hours at arguably the biggest Mania yet, not WrestleMania, but Grimma-Mania 8. And he's going to be putting up his Intercontinental Championship, where, oh, by the way, he's the longest reigning GTS Intercontinental Champion of all time. And that speaks volumes, against a man I happen to know very well, and a man that I've interviewed, and a man that was live here on Sportswire Radio just over 3 months ago and actually showed the back of his back, and, well, it looked like he could play connect the dots with it. Now, maybe our guest will do that when he's reading the newspaper. Hopefully it's the financial section, because after all, the financial section is doing a little better these days. Stay tuned if they raise interest rates. But our guest here has literally done it all. And there's so many people I know that want to talk to our guest tonight. And I promise you, we're going to get to you. But we have to hear his story, which maybe yet, ladies and gentlemen, of all the people that I've interviewed in the pros, might be one of the most unique yet. And that's saying something. Plus, for our guest tonight, we certainly have something we want to present to him that shows how much he means to not only this sport, not only to what Sportswire Radio has to offer, but also the definition of all wrestling that matters. Because after all, our guest has done that and some. And oh, by the way, we certainly need a little bit of datitude, and we need, that is, after all, the god of the dad bods. Ladies and gentlemen, I could go on and on and on about our guest tonight. And as I stated, I certainly will. But it's time to formally introduce our guest, the reigning defending GTS, IC, and US champion, one half of the Stepdads, by the way, arguably maybe the hottest tag team right now in independent wrestling, Mr. Rad Dad Radley Belmont. But Rad Dad, before I actually say hello to you, you have to get that introduction that so many of your peers have gotten, whether it's in EBW Pro, whether it's where you're going to TF Crew in June, and boy, interesting experience in itself, and maybe even the man that you're actually going to wrestle in a matter of hours, Mikey Anarchy, and of course, my very dear friend, Mr. Jimmy Controversy. It's time to give you now that introduction that we've all been waiting for, and I guarantee you, you've never gotten before, and you'll never get after this one, well, until you come back to Sportswire Radio, hopefully. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right to it and give our guest that introduction that I've been waiting for, you've been waiting for, and, well, hopefully he's been waiting for. So, with that, wait for it, further ado here on the Sports Report. Number one, Sports Show. One half of the Stepdads. Here's the reigning, defending GTS, IC and U.S. champion. His name is Radley.
Ooh.
The champ is here.
Holy cow. Holy cow. I'm getting blown up just listening to you. Jeez Louise.
Well, you know what? I got to be honest. I know I say this all the time. You know, Jimmy Controversy was here Wednesday. We've had on Dean Allmark, who's defeated Jushin Thunder Liger, Bryan Danielson. I mean, the list goes on. But this one, I really felt like this was kind of the moment here. This was the one, you know what? We got to pull out all the stops on Sportswire because this is really one for the ages. You know, literally just hours before Grimmomania, arguably the biggest Grimmomania yet for a company that has 1+ million subscribers, a company that is number 7th most viewed in all of wrestling. We had to go basically even further than we've ever gone because, after all, you are one half of the stepdads, and you really are the definition of all wrestling matters. And first of all, before I formally introduce you, let me do this because I haven't done this for a while. Only maybe a few people have gotten this, so I want to do this.
Oh. Well, thank you. Thank you.
And so, first of all, as I pretty much gone as much as I could, it is an absolute honor to have you, and thank you for being here. And how the heck are you tonight?
Like, you know, geez, I'm smiling ear to ear right now. This is like, that really was the best introduction. I'm pretty sure, hands down. Not pretty sure, I'm sure. Hands down, that was the best introduction I've ever had. That was amazing. Thank you so much. Holy
well, I know you've done like so many podcasts, and I've actually listened to a bunch of them, and I hear these guys, well, you know, we really did the great intro, and I'm like, you know, Rad Dad, I know Rad Dad knows Sportswire. I know he knows many of the peers that have come on this platform. Like, you know, Rad Dad, you know, guys can tell him, and he can go, yeah, that was the best intro, but you know, he comes on Sportswire, where all wrestling matters, and he really, to be honest, you're home tonight. You know, I know you haven't been here before, but I want to say this is home because I know you've done these other podcasts, and yes, some of the guys knew you, they work with you, but you really are in basically home because the people listening tonight, they're colleagues of yours. They've watched you in GTS. They've watched you in NYCW. They've watched you in the yard. This is really, to me, in my opinion, take it for whatever you want, as the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters, the Reverend Tom Bryce. This is really the first time you're in a home environment for an interview.
Listen, I mean, I'm being interviewed in my home right now, but it does feel like a homecoming. It feels like a welcoming. You're absolutely right. Everyone from my yard days all the way to now at GTS. I'm seeing the chat right now. Everyone's buzzing.
I don't get this every time. I'll be honest. I've had Jack Delta's been on here. I've had on, you know, Dean Allmark. Jimmy was here. You know, we've had some big names. Luke Leyland, who was in Dombe and fought in Africa. I don't get this. You came on tonight. People are asking me. I'm tuning in. You know, it's Rad Dad. You know what? I want to be here for Rad Dad. So I think that speaks volumes tonight in what you've done. And to me, we're going to talk a lot about Mikey Anarchy. We're going to talk a lot about GTS. We're going to talk a lot about Grimm. We're going to talk a lot about friends of the show. Everything in your career you've done. But to me, I want this to be a celebration, really, for what you've done, champ, for this sport.
Oh man, that's just really nice of you. That's really nice of you. I really appreciate that. As you know, I am one half of the Stepdads. I'm mostly a tag team wrestler, but the last year, about 2 years, I've really had a lot of singles action here. GTS United States Champion, GTS Intercontinental Champion. I like to call it the GTS Workhorse Double Crown. That's not an official title, but that's what I like to call it on the show.
Well, there's a lot of things that have certainly gone on, but I have a lot of comments, and I want people to hang on tight because we obviously want to hear from the champion, and it's an absolute honor to have you. And I'd be remiss if I didn't start out with, obviously, Grimmomania. And Grimmomania is the biggest one to date yet, and it's a massive card. Jimmy was here to talk about his match with Dirty Ron, and we have so many other matches. We had the pre-match already. We've had the whole situation with Grimm, and I have to ask you, for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, you are putting up that Intercontinental Championship, as I stated, against a man that I know extremely well in Mikey Anarchy, a man that I've seen him wrestle. I've seen literally all his flesh and wounds figuratively in front of my face. And, you're wrestling a guy in a different element. So I have to ask you, for those that are listening and watching, because you're home tonight, you're really in your house tonight, more or less. I know you're in your home literally, but you're really in the house of people that they believe in you, they've watched you, and they support you. So tell us how you're going to find a way to keep yourself as the GTS Intercontinental Championship in your hands against none other than Mikey Anarchy at Grimomania 8.
Well, I do feel like I have home field advantage right now, luckily. Thank goodness. But you're talking about Mikey Anarchy's back. I once said if you look at Mikey Anarchy's back and you look at a picture of Mars, it's practically the same thing.
Well, I always say you can play connect the dots with it, but I'll take that.
There you go. You can make up like Ryan's belt or something out of there. I might have to make a new belt on his back with a ladder or two. But here's the deal. Mikey Anarchy is a tough cookie. Everybody knows that. That's
Sure.
Seen Mikey Anarchy. He's won deathmatch tournaments. The guy's former, actually, he's the current underground champion.
Yep,
Current
UWF, and I've seen him. And
yeah, he's got all these titles.
TF Crew, he's challenging for their YouTube championship against Angel Santiago, another man very well from this whole thing, GTS and Pro Wrestling Venom. And, he's in all these different places. And he's kind of like the next like hardcore deathmatch guy. Like he's the next guy, more or less.
And crazy enough, I have defeated Mikey Anarchy in a death match.
I know you'd mentioned that for one of the GTS shows. I knew you'd mentioned
it was with Jimmy Controversy as well. Now they were the ones doing most of the death match stuff. I was very lucky to be, strategic in my Intercontinental title defense that night. But I got the pin on Mikey Anarchy in that death match. And since that time, that was November. Since that time, we've wrestled back and forth. I've beaten him with my stepdad stunner. He beat me by putting a barbed wire baseball bat in my eyeball, trying to take out my eyes so I'd never see my kids again.
Well, so I'm not going to comment on what that was like, but like I said, I know Mikey Anarchy, so I can only imagine what that felt.
I never thought I would be in that situation in my entire life. I'll tell you that. That's a fact right there. And that happened. Since then, he won the Intercontinental title. He lost the Intercontinental title. There was a who's the real Intercontinental champion. Well, now we're going to settle it once and for all. I'm putting both belts on the line at Grimomania. GTS, it's exactly what you said. The number 7 YouTube show in all of wrestling on YouTube. That's a huge.
Oh my goodness! Show. I mean, like I got to be honest. I interview. We'll come back to Mike in a second. And again, I promise I'm going to read people's comments. Of people, so many people are so excited to talk about you. I'm excited to talk to you. But you're wrestling. It's not every day that we get somebody on here that wrestles in a company that has more views than Ring of Honor. A company that has more views than New Japan.
Crazy.
MLL. And you're here, MLW. And, number 7. That's a massive accomplishment. And you're not just a wrestler. I have guys come all the time. Yeah, I wrestled that guy. And yeah, I wrestled that person. But no, you're actually really the workhorse champions. You call it maybe the number 2 guy in a company right now that is number 7. I mean, that's a really big.
Absolutely. I'm putting in the work every single week, and that's what I love to do. That's what I feel like great wrestlers do. I want to be a great wrestler. I want to show people that they can be a great wrestler. So every weekend I'm at these independent shows, but every week you could see me wrestle once, maybe even twice on GTS, and I'm winning. I'm in the best shape of my life right now. So
oh my God, you transformed yourself from when this journey first started to where you are now. I mean, we called you the god of the dad bods, but you don't have a dad bod anymore. You have more like a wrestling bod now, like a true wrestling bod.
That is true. I used to say I'm the god of the dad bods. I still say that once in a while, but after I lost 43 pounds. I decided I went from a dad bod to a father figure. You know what I'm saying?
I think that was mentioned on one of the GTS episodes not too long ago. I mean, you literally transformed your body. And, how, for a second, real quick, how difficult is it? I'm friends with the guy, RP Davis, who's, a protege in a way of William Regal. He was a boxing world champion turned wrestling champion. He's arguably the biggest independent wrestler in all of Britain. And, he transformed his body, but he was still a boxer. So it's like, okay, you just got to put the work in. But you literally made a drastic turnaround. And how did you do it? And what inspired you to do that? Especially because we have a lot of yarders here, a lot of independent guys that are watching us. They believe in you. So how did you pull it off? Maybe you can show them something that can motivate them here tonight.
So I'll explain exactly what happened. Exactly the moment I decided to start losing weight. Because before that, I was the god dad bod. I was the rad dad. I didn't really worry about that much. Like I didn't feel awful, And I love pizza. Who doesn't love a good
I am
barbecue
from
pizza?
Brooklyn, New York, so I basically should be my middle name, but it's not. You did wrestle for Pizza Party Wrestling.
I did. I have Pizza Party Wrestling right up my alley. I did have pizza that night with Pizza Cat, who now wrestles as what's her name, Blackheart, and on SmackDown. I think she's still on SmackDown.
Shotzi
Anyway,
Blackheart, yeah,
Roxy,
Shotzi.
yeah,
Who's hurt, by the way, unfortunately.
Either way,
Yeah.
she was Pizza Cat to me. That's how I remember. But
you're right, Dad. I'm not arguing with you. I don't want you to beat me like a stepdad would.
But so I end up wrestling for Chikara. If you ever heard Chikara Pro.
Yes, I've heard you guys reference it many times. Yes.
Right. So I wrestled for them, and they had us wear just plain black trunks. They wanted us to just be enhancement talent that night. Totally understand. We went in. We knew the assignment. I didn't wear my special stepdad stuff. I didn't look amazing. I was there for a fight that night. I wasn't there to just be the rad dad and have fun. And I'll tell you, when I put on those normal black trunks with the ties out and I just had normal boots, I looked awful. And I'm not fat shaming or anything like that. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. I think everyone looks beautiful in their own way. But I was not impressed by my own look. I'll tell you that right now. I always say, here's some advice for you. I always say, be the wrestler that you as a teenager would want to see. And when I looked at myself in that moment, I said, this is not the rad dad I would pay money to see.
But it's not an easy thing to make that decision and do what you did. I mean, people say all the time, yeah, I'm going to do this. Yeah, I'm going to do that. But you put the work in. I mean, I think that speaks volumes. Because again, there's a lot of people here tonight that, like I said, you're with your people tonight. I mean, tell us like what advice you would give to them. There's a lot of people I speak with all the time. I talk to people from all backgrounds to say, Tom, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. Guys talk about mental health all the time. They talk about all these different things, but you were the guy that broke from being in the yard to where you are today. But also you put yourself and you did the work to give yourself no longer the dad bod, to have the wrestler bod. So what advice would you give them?
My biggest advice to them would be that you are going to falter at times. You are going to fail on some days. If you have a diet, you're going to miss it sometimes. The key isn't to be perfect. The key is to strive to be perfect. And when I was trying to lose weight all the time, I would still really want that barbecue pizza, man. I really want that barbecue pizza.
Wait a minute, barbecue pizza? I mean, listen,
it's my thing.
I don't know about barbecue pizza, but
I'm a barbecue pizza man. I'm a WCW man. I'm a barbecue pizza man. I'm a hedgehog man. All the stuff that's weird.
I come from Brooklyn, with the real confines of Brooklyn, where it was, Bensonhurst, Bay Ridge. So it was like you had either plain or pepperoni. There was no other sides. But I hear barbecue pizza. You have to remember, I'm from basically the mecca of pizza. So, when I hear that, tell them, okay, but you're rad dad. We're giving you a pass.
I appreciate that, because I will say I absolutely love New York pizza. Not to go off on a tangent, but when I started going, I used to go to Queens like every week for a while, and I would just walk the streets. And I remember talking to my lady who was with me that night. I just said, I feel like I'm on a movie set, because I was still not used to being in New York. I'm from Las Vegas. I'm from the West Coast, Utah, California. I was born in California. So to me, New York is this movie set that you see in every like Marvel movie and the Ninja Turtles and stuff.
Well, I mean, to be fair, to go off tangent real quick, I grew up when I was a kid. I remember the movie Sunset Park was being filmed. It was actually literally like 3 blocks from my house, which was started at the time was a famous rapper who was in the group Onyx, and it was Rhea Perlman, who was dating DeVito's wife. And then Saturday Night Fever was shot literally blocks from my house at the time. So, I mean, that's all I know is famous movies. So, I mean, I could talk about that.
Ironically enough, where I work now, that parking lot they used to use as the set for stunt working for the Gotham TV show.
Yes.
And when they were doing that, there was a guy on the set as a stuntman that I used to wrestle while in Jersey. So I actually knew a guy on set.
You never know. The wrestling business is such an interesting one. So
absolutely crazy.
So you've made this transformation. Now you've obviously got to count on this transformation to help you with Mikey. Your advantages here in this match is your agility. Your advantages are in this match of sort of more or less, your style is something that Mikey is not used to. Mikey, even though he said here, actually, ironically enough, on this platform a few months ago, he wasn't just a hardcore wrestler. Remember Mikey specifically saying, I'm not just a hardcore wrestler. But at the end of the day, he's used to killing himself. He's used to basically putting his body through things that, you don't do. So is one of your advantages here coming up at Grim and Mania is going to be that Mikey has not seen your kind of style, and you, as a student of the game, have studied his style, and you actually have wrestled that style. And are those things you're counting on here to keep your IC title?
Well, the main thing to me, as far as the strategy of this match, and that's the funny part, I don't know if Mikey Anarchy has a strategy. Mike, like you could be the hardest puncher in the entire world. The entire world doesn't mean you're going to be the best boxer. You have to have the strategy. And I believe Mikey Anarchy, I said this on the show, and I really believe it. I think Mikey Anarchy could beat anybody at GTS. I think he could beat anybody at Pro Wrestling Venom, and the crowd would believe it, and he could do it. He could really do it and win any title. But here's the thing. Mikey Anarchy grew up as a deathmatch wrestler. He sees that strong style. He's tough. Does he have strategic mindset? This is a ladder match. And in a ladder match, he could literally stand there and just, like a caveman, hit me with a ladder 500 times. It doesn't mean I can tap out and he wins. It doesn't mean he can pin me and he wins. He has to climb the ladder.
And get the belt.
And I'm the kind of guy that, and you've seen some of my stuff. You've seen
I've seen a lot of
ridiculous things that have happened to me. I've fallen off ladders. I've been in death matches. I've gone through tables. I've done all this ridiculous stuff. I get back up. I get back up every time. I don't think I've ever lost a ladder match now that I think about it, because I am always getting back up. I always strive to be the best I can be and climb those rungs and get to the top, because I know the people that are watching me, one day they want to be a great wrestler. They want to be a great businessman. They want to succeed in their family. And that stuff fuels me. That stuff fuels me so much. Every time I see a comment like that, that's like, I hope you win. I had a really bad day, and hearing your promo really made me feel good. I'm really rooting for you. Like, I had to internalize that and focus it. Mikey Anarchy's worried about beating me up. I'm worried about winning the match.
But that's what Mikey's done. Like you said, Mikey has made himself into a household name over the past few years.
And he deserves that.
He does. Oh, listen. I've had him on, trust me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I've watched him in the ring. I've seen him in other promotions. So I know Mikey from the UWF. I know Mikey from a company we're going to talk about in a little while, the TF Crew. So I know him before I've gotten a chance to see him a lot in GTS. So I know what he brings to the table. But let me ask you this, and I'm going to read off comments. I know people are just like, they are inundating you with comments. I'm going to get to them. It's a special night for sure. But is your experience is something else that you would count as an advantage going into Grim and Mania, because you have far more experience than he does?
1,000%. I mean, I started training as a professional wrestler in 2009. I've seen the craziest things you can see. I've seen the best wrestlers in the world have been in front of me, have worked with me.
You wrestled the Rock and Roll Express, arguably the greatest American tag team in wrestling history.
I mean, it goes so much beyond that. I've locked up with Ricky Morton. I've been in the ring with Alex Zane. I've been on. I used to go on boards on. I don't know if you remember old message boards.
Yes,
and I would
we'll talk about that. Yep.
I would critique matches with Will Ospreay. Like I have rubbed shoulders with the best wrestlers in the world. My tag team partner used to hang out with Kenny Omega. Like,
yeah, well, he talked about hanging out at he talked about Old Jersey Pro Wrestling. So if you're a local guy like me, you know Old Jersey Pro Wrestling very well. So I mean, you guys have a lot of the connections that I don't want to say that he doesn't have, but he hasn't quite gotten yet. That's why I say quite gotten yet.
I've been focusing on the Mikey Anarchy of today, because the Mikey Anarchy of, let's say, next year's Grim and Mania, if he's there, 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, he might be the best. He might be one of the best. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I think that, to listen, again, he speaks volumes. I want people to follow before I get to comments. If you're on social media right now, for whatever reason, you haven't followed the stepdads, go do so now, because he will give you a stepdad-like of a beating, if that's such a thing. But go make sure you follow the stepdads. I promise you need to. And also Pro Wrestling Tees. In fact, I'm going to pull up some of the merchandise up on the screen here in a little bit. But let me get to, I have so many comments, and I know I got to read them off here. Let me say hello to a lot of people here. First, my new friend of late, Nate, says, I can't wait. It's not PG. He says, first of all, I heard a rumor that Mikey hates to be tickled. Here's what to do. Grab a feather, climb up the ladder, wait till Mikey comes up, and tickle him on hit face with it, or he'll tickle him and hit his face with it. He'll fall down and you win. So what do you say to that?
See, I'm a little worried there. If I tickle his face and he sneezes, I might lose my balance and fall off the ladder. So I got to be very strategic with this feather deal, okay?
Birds of a feather, I suppose, right?
Absolutely.
Also, I want to get to people. My friend Skulls, who, by the way, I just realized Grim actually shouted out when he announced that the company was number 7 on YouTube, because Skulls was actually in the super chat and he actually wished Skulls a happy birthday. So I wanted to make sure Skulls and I were talking about this off. Yeah, I was like, Skulls, did you realize? I just realized today that Grim actually wished you happy birthday. He said, let me check that. He was like, yeah, you're right, Tom. What up, Rad Dad? I promise I didn't change the temperature.
Well, do not touch the thermostat. That is
you know what? I was like, I know they tried to do that in the EBW Pro match, and that was like, what were these guys doing? The EJ Rodriguez and Lucha Dos. My very dear friend, when I want to say this, and I'm wearing his shirt right now, Mr. Sean Jovi. He is in my Hall of Fame, one of my all-time favorite people ever to come on Sportzwire Radio, and he gives you the Rad Hazard. I'm going to certainly maybe get to that match that you had.
I know what he wants. I got to do it. Rad Hazard, as I used to say all the time.
There you go. And I want to say hello to Remy Ravage, who I'm a friend with on Facebook. And how you doing, Remy? And Rad Dad. Yep, you better believe that. Want to say hello to one of my buddies, Nicholas Crenson, Ratty Daddy. And also, I want to give a big shout out to one of my other buddies, Mr. Chase Wakefield, who kind of looks like the maybe 10-year younger version of you. This man legit was a part of my childhood. I used to watch back in the Rad Hazard days. I just want to say thank you for doing everything you've done in the past. And now, because if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be even close to doing what I've done in wrestling. When you hear something like this, and Chase Wakefield, a guy who's made his name in places like Versus the World Wrestling and DBW and, a lot of other places, Enterprise and Amplified Wrestling. I mean, when you hear something like this, and then we'll get to the comments, but what does that mean to you when you personally hear something like that?
I want to be very genuine about this. That really means the absolute world to me. Like, anybody saying something like that is so incredible, because I grew up feeling the same way about other people. And for anybody to even, I'm the kind of guy that if you even saw one of my matches, I'm like, wow, I exist. Like, I'm amazed. So
I know you said that on Twitter. And I'm like, I know you though. I
don't know. I don't know why. I always expect no one to know who the heck I am. But which is great when I'm in a battle royal or something. I sneak in, get a quick win. They don't know.
Wow. Okay. Duly noted. Fair enough. Fair play. But, okay, let me get to some more comments. There's a lot of people. I'm way behind on them. I remember watching Backyard Wrestling weekly religiously. I'm honored to have shared the base with him, too, and be a part of his radical movement. Do you want to talk about that for a few minutes?
Yeah, so in 2000, I think it was 2008, very late 2008.
Yeah, Sean mentioned that one of the first times he came onto the show about 2 years ago. So go ahead.
I discovered, it's weird to say, I discovered Backyard Wrestling literally by getting broadband internet and getting actual access to YouTube. Because before that, I had dial-up, and I couldn't get YouTube at all. Those were the days. My goodness. So now I'm dating myself insanely. But
God, what are you going to tell us next? You were on America Online Message Chat, which I knew you were on. Actually,
I had AOL Messenger for sure. I think my name was it might have been Rad Has. I don't even remember. It might have been Visual Devastation, which was my old YouTube channel. Who knows? I can't even remember my going away message. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So back then, I decided to start running essentially a clip show / news show called Backyard Wrestling Weekly. And this is 2008, 2009. I was getting thousands of views from this. People were loving what I was doing. I still have a lot of that stuff saved on my hard drive. It was so much fun to not just learn about these places, but help them connect with each other by showing all these clips in one location, helping build that community. It was a legitimate community of people from all over the world. At first, it was just kind of people I knew in the West Coast, advanced to the Midwest, Northeast, and then UK and Canada. I ended up wrestling.
And it's so funny you said that. And, I was listening to you talk about wrestling guys in the UK. And, I actually got my start, ironically, in covering wrestling through the UK, through British wrestling. And,
awesome.
And I was like, wow, that's so fascinating, because my story in a way is kind of similar, because I started covering wrestling formally through British wrestling. And I was like, wow, you connected with people all over the world. You just never know how you can use your voice for people. And, what was that like, wrestling and connecting with people? I know you get asked about this all the time, but I feel like it's different when I ask you, again, not to be biased, because you're at home tonight. I really feel like you're home tonight. So, I mean, I feel like, what was that like though? And, making those memories and such.
I do appreciate the freshness of these questions, I will tell you.
Oh, I've got more of them ahead. You just wait. Like I said, Jimmy propped me up. That he don't prop up nobody for nothing. I know that for a fact. So he doesn't.
And I'm an open book with all these things, so I'm very happy with it. I love the British style, the World of Sport.
Oh, Marty, I sort of know Marty Jones. I've had one conversation with him. Yep, I know. Yeah, there's another guy.
If you ever watch a Stepdad's match, a lot of times I still do the inside elbow.
I noticed that, I do see some of like your like, I don't want to call it like slow and plodding, but it's very similar to that British like methodical, take it in, work your opponent, work the arms, work the knees. It's very similar to those days of Lee Collins, Marty Jones, Giant Haystacks. I know all these people.
I'm an old school lover of wrestling. I love that, as you said, plodding, old, like I don't want to say slow, but like methodical. Methodical style. But yeah, I legitimately learned that info from an actual British trained wrestler named Tim Lee, who still wrestles out there in the UK to this day.
I've heard the name. Sure.
Absolutely love him to death. He's a hilarious wrestler. If you anybody out there who's never seen him, just look up Tim Lee or Tim Lee TV. You're gonna find a lot of really funny clips and some really good wrestling. I wrestled him. I think it was like a 26 minute pure rules match.
Wow. Oh, I know Pure Rules very well out there. Oh, yes. Yeah. Sure.
To this day, it's still one of my favorite matches ever. I believe it was one of my very last backyard matches, but it was in a ring against a real British trained wrestler. I was already trained. It might as well, there's nothing bad about it. It was fantastic. I still love it to this day. And I kept that. My style has so many different things I picked and choose from. I took a bunch of stuff from Sting. I took a bunch of stuff from my British friends. I used the stunner. And I love comedy, and I feel like even in World of Sport.
Well, BBC comedy is, a lot of people don't realize, but BBC comedy is very unique in that
absolutely.
Sense.
And I love that British wrestling comedy. That is right up my alley, where it's still very realistic. It's even effective.
Did you correct me if I'm wrong? Did you go over there?
I was not able to go over there. My partner Wade did go over there and defend one of our backyard wrestling titles out there. That's a whole other story. But
yeah, I think when Wade comes on, I want to get both of you guys on next. Absolutely. I think I want to talk about that because I know so many guys out there, but I have a lot of comments. Let me read them off here. A lot of those guys were big inspirations of what I've done in the ring, and thank you for that. Want to say hello to one of my buddies from Resurrection Wrestling, Mr. Drake Golddragon, who Jimmy Controversy has shared a locker room with him with. So there you go, Jimmy, spreading the love. Want to say hello to a man that recently called literally one of your most recent matches at EBW Pro, Mr. DVG himself, Mr. Destin Venglo. And he says, it's the best dad and the rad dad, Radley Belmont. How is everyone doing tonight? Well, I mean, how do you think we're doing tonight? We're speaking with Rad Dad. He's the
I'm doing fantastic now that you're here.
One half of the stepdads, and DVG is one of my favorites. And Sean Jovi popped at my intro, which is a big deal. Okay. He loved my intro. Let's say, Jacob Young, our Tom and Type. Well, that's yesterday's show. I want to say hello to my buddy, Mr. Michael Christian. His stepdad was ex-stepdad was a wrestling referee, Festus Davis. So what the irony, right? We actually have a guy whose former stepdad was in wrestling. And he says, hello, Rev, Rad Dad. I'm digging that shirt. Got a few myself.
This is my favorite shirt, I must say.
Is that like a VH1 I love the 80s shirt? Are you like on like one of those like I love the 80s type of things?
It's very Saved by the Bell. It's very, it kind of looks like the stuff you have on those cups back in the day.
Oh, okay. I just saw the other day on Instagram that Kelly Kapowski turned 50, and I was like, really? She turned 50? So she don't look 50, but she turned 50. But that's a different conversation for a different time. I know of a lot of people that I'm trying to pull up with. I want to say hello to my buddy, Mr. Soldier GP. He's the IMF World Heavyweight Champion. He says stepdads versus the foundation. Those guys are in, in Iowa. They were in like 400-seat venues. They're at the Panlo Community Center. So, maybe Soldier can find a way to, book the stepdads because you guys are, the definition of, traveling wrestlers. Even Grimm didn't want to face Skulls at GTS, but Jimmy would. Mr. Belmont, who do you want to win? Shamar versus Vlad?
Ooh, that's a good question. I personally love Vlad. I think Vlad is an incredible talent. Shamar, very motivated. very motivated, and I love seeing Shamar this motivated. I've never seen him in person this motivated before, but it's Vlad, guys. It's like you can be as motivated as you want and then run at a truck. You're still running into a truck.
I was gonna say, looking at his shape, looking at his size. I mean, I say this all the time on Sportzwire. There might be one of those moments you might want to reevaluate showing up.
Yeah. No, if I was ever booked against Vlad, I don't know, man. But here's the thing. Vlad wrestled Cletus last year. Vlad defeated Cletus.
Yes.
He separated his shoulder halfway through that match and still F5 Cletus and beat Cletus in the rain. You telling me he can't beat Shamar on a normal day with no rain and no separated shoulder? I think Shamar's going to give him a run for his money, but I am
maybe
1,000% behind.
To cue half of your entrance, maybe we should do that Billy Squires, slow man strut or short man strut. Kind of maybe that's the way to go. Strut out of the ring, out of the other way. Going in a different direction. I tell people all the time that if this doesn't work out, I'm trying stand-up comedy. So we'll see. But Mr. Belmont, a move I want you to do to Mikey is called the Razor's Edge off the ladder in caps locks. I don't know if you're going to be able to pull that off necessarily.
Well, here's the thing. He says it's called the Razor's Edge off the ladder. It could be just a roll-up or something. And I might be able to do a roll-up if it's called the Razor's Edge off the ladder. But if he actually wants a real Razor's Edge off the ladder...
Well, Nate, I know I'm behind in comments, but I will, I will say, give me another follow-up. Want to say hello to this person, which I know very well. We all know very well. I mean, Rad Dad is okay sometimes, though. He says sometimes.
And you know what? Drinking iced tea is okay sometimes, but sometimes I just want some barbecue pizza. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to go back to that.
Well, iced tea, I haven't had iced tea in a while, so I will say I'll give you that one. Want to say hello to one of my very good buddies, a man that is pound for pound, maybe the best wrestler in the yard, and he's also another traveling person, Mr. Jack Delta. If there's one thing I love about wrestling, it's recording, setting title reigns, which is obviously you're the man that's done that, and he's done that, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And he says huge score of an interview. So thank you, Jack, for the very nice words. I appreciate your support. Also, aren't you the guy that was with that woman, Ember Moon?
Oh, yeah, Ember Moon. Yes.
He followed up and said, nope, she wanted to manage me. I said no, LOL, Nate. So that's what he just wanted to remind you of.
I'll point this out for Ice-T. That Ember Moon has gotten more title shots than he has. So there's that. And she's not even a wrestler.
She's the catalyst for making the next biggest loser. Poor NJ Knight.
No. Poor NJ Knight.
Are you in the food in the fridge match? He said, nah, I lost my chance to get in, brother. Maybe next time. Well, at least he wasn't put in the swirly like Jimmy Controversy. Did anybody see that? What happened with Jimmy Controversy? Yeah. Oh my goodness. I don't even know how he shows up.
Back to me. He's not even in the money in this match. Come on.
Ice-T, I see Tarzan Duran needs an opponent. I think you could face him. Let's move on. Favorite food item?
Gee, oh boy. What have I been talking about this entire time? Pizza. Barbecue pizza. I'm not even joking. Or barbecue ribs. I'm just a barbecue guy. I'm from the desert. I'm from Las Vegas. I want them ribs. It's barbecue world out there, my friend.
Okay. It's not we're living in a Barbie world anymore. We're living in a barbecue world, not a Barbie world.
I'm gonna make a T-shirt that says that now.
Okay, I'll maybe buy it. Maybe one day. I missed my chance for Grimmania this year, but I'll work to get in next year. And I want to say hello to my very good friend, Mr. Anthony Steele, the real deal Anthony Steele out there, who is trying to get a match with Jimmy Controversy. I think Jimmy's going to still decide. So I want to say how you doing there to Mr. Anthony Steele. I want to say hello to one of my favorite guys, and a guy maybe you should certainly look into his work, kind of like a non-hardcore version of Mikey Anarchy. His name is Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is special because he has wrestled in a number of different places, not only in the independents up and down the Mid-Atlantic, but he's also wrestled a guy you probably heard of named the Barbarian, and he's also the Versus the World Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion, and he is an awesome guy, and you never know, maybe Mr. Jones is scouting for some of the companies he's wrestled in North Carolina and so on, Redemption Championship Wrestling and some other places, so that could be something. Maybe you're getting scouted. Hello, Tom Bryce and the man Rad Dad. How are you guys doing today? I mean, couldn't be in a better place right now, Ethan. We are here with the legendary Rad Dad himself.
Feeling rad.
He changed the temperature, though.
Nate, am I going to have to come to your house, young man? can't have this. We can't have
Do
this.
they give so now? I don't want to pry into business. I have to ask you this question. I know you don't get asked this much, but do stepdads do they give the belt out? So when I was a kid growing up, and I can say this on the air, growing up in Brooklyn, I did go out of line a few times. Now my daddy at the time, he would give me the belt from time to time. Now to be fair, I deserved it. I was certainly a troublesome youngster at the time. I know people probably can't believe that, but yes. But do stepdads what do they do when the children get out of order? I don't know. I mean, I would just because you are, after all, and we're here in a live studio audience, and you are a stepdad.
It's true. We are in front of a live studio audience, as it should be with the stepdads. Listen, just like with my opponents, when they get out of line, you gotta be the man of the house. You have to be the authority figure. I will bring out the belt. Sometimes it's this belt. Sometimes it's this belt. But either way,
I fell right into that trap. I fell, champ, right into that trap.
Dad's got the gold.
And speaking of Versus the World Wrestling, one of my other favorite companies out there, and they've got, I think, was it 5,000 subscribers now on YouTube? So, definitely loving them. And does the Rad Dad watch any backyard wrestling outside of the Grim Room? Meaning, like, no GTS, Pro Wrestling Venom. We know you have had a decorated career in the yard, but do you still watch anything currently in the yard? Do you still keep up? Or you're the definition of a traveling wrestler these days? But I'd be curious, especially for Jack and other people here tonight who are yard.
I mean, obviously, much like you, all wrestling matters. I really believe that, and I do love watching every style of wrestling.
Thank you for saying that, Bo, because there's some guys that come on and they shun, and it's not right. There are some guys that come on here and, they shun people that go out there and, they're trying their best and they're doing really what they want to do to, make people smile. And thank you for saying that, brother. Really,
absolutely. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter if you're in a ring in front of 50,000 people or if you're just in a backyard with your friends. If you're performing the art of professional wrestling, you are a wrestler, you are an artist, and you're doing what you love. And that I absolutely approve that as long as you're doing it safely.
All right, I have a good question from Ethan, which I want to bring up. I have a question for you, Rad Dad. What would be your favorite match from GTS Wrestling that you've had in your career so far? That's a great question.
Oh, man, that is a great question. There's so many great matches. I don't want to just run a bunch off. But feel free to look them up. But I had the first one that comes to my mind. I had a fantastic steel cage match with Jungle Jim Wilder.
Yes.
And I will spoil it. I'll put the cart in front of the horse in front of the carriage, wherever the heck the saying is. I did not win that match, but I learned a valuable lesson in that match that I wanted to win fair and square. I wanted to win on my own morals, and I didn't overstep those morals. And that's a big rule. So even though I lost that night, the entire roster came into the ring to check on me afterwards, because I had won their respect. And that was really what was most important to me that night. And lo and behold, a month later, I was once again the Intercontinental Champion. I got so many belts, I'm getting confused. So either way, God. I absolutely love that match. Any match against Jungle Jim Wilder, as much as I despise the man, I do think we have fantastic chemistry in the ring.
Fair enough. I think there's many matches of yours you can watch. I'm going to pull it up in a few minutes, actually, because I have it on my share of the screen. Hard drive on a pole match. That's a good one here. I want to get to a lot of people I want to plug. There's so many people that want to say hello to you. I have another question for you, the Rad Dad. If you had to pick one person, any wrestling company, to have a dream opponent, who would it be and why? That's a good because you've actually wrestled some guys that would be on many people's list, like the Rock and Roll Express.
Right. I mean, before that match would have happened, I absolutely would have said Ricky Morton or the Rock and Roll Express would be my dream match. Now, maybe somebody I met once, someone who told me I was absolutely hilarious, but I never got to wrestle him in the ring, Orange Cassidy. That would be my choice today. Or he already knows who I am. Obviously, the world knows who he is. I think our chemistry would be phenomenal.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good one. I would also throw out there, why not R-Truth?
Oh, I am on board. I'll tell you that right now.
Again, sort of the same kind of things. I mean, R-Truth, stepdads versus R-Truth and The Miz.
Fantastic. Maybe it'll be a ladder match. He's afraid of ladders, and I'm definitely going to win. So,
okay, fair enough here. Well, I want to say hello to my friend, Mr. Aaron Blaze. The headlines in the house. I want to say hello to my very good friends, NEW Wrestling, New Wrestling, out in Massachusetts, which actually there are some connections to somebody we're going to bring up in a little while, Mr. Gabe Sayers, because you're going to be wrestling in his company in a little while. So I'm going to definitely talk about that as well. Question for Ratty: favorite WWE male and female wrestler? I have a lot of comments. I mean, people are just I don't even have to host a show tonight. I could let the audience just basically.
I know, right? It's
I
just,
can leave. I think people would probably want that anyway. But go ahead.
It's truly a Q&A. That's fine. Oh my goodness, favorite WWE male and female wrestler. I'm a big proponent of LA Knight right now. I really love what he's doing. He brings back that Attitude Era vibe and that charisma that a lot of people, maybe not lacking is the right term, but a lot of people are missing today. We miss those larger-than-life characters. You see the Roman Reigns and the Cody and how they're doing it. LA Knight is one of those guys that has yet to really hit that top crescendo.
Yeah, I think he's kind of like, I don't want to make the right comparison, but it reminds me of like Stone Cold, like 1997-ish. Like he's a year away. He's there, but he needs a little bit more. I don't know what that moment would be. I don't know if it's going to happen soon, but he's like, to me, maybe a year away from the movement, maybe reaching the brass ceiling. I mean, it could be. I don't know. I'm just thinking.
No, I agree with you very much, very much. And I really love, I'm glad you said that. I really love 96, 97 Stone Cold, late 96, when he's really pushing things to the limit. I really love that.
Well, what certainly do is we want people to, if you're here, give the Stepdads a sub on YouTube. They have broke over 1,000 subscribers. You can watch stuff from them from GTS. You can watch stuff from them dating back all throughout their decorated career. You can see stuff from them, in 2020, 19, the early days, all different types of stuff. Podcasts they've been on, certainly not as good as this one. Just kidding. But the fact star is, if you want to, go hit that sub button, support the Stepdads. Make sure you do, because if you get out of line, they will come after you. And Rad Dad's already told us how he'll do it. So make sure you do support them. I'm going to skip off on the WWE question, Ethan, because I want to talk to Rad Dad a little bit. So we'll hang off that for a little bit. Had the pleasure of meeting Rad in person at a GBYWN show back in 2000. And if I could, I want to give a big shout out to my buddy Jake Matthews, who was the man behind NEW, and he is an awesome guy. We have actually been covering some of this stuff, and again, he's connected to Gabe Sayers, and Gabe is another one of my favorite guys that I have gotten to know. And you want to talk about some of those members. I know a lot of guys like Sean Jovi are here, want to hear you talk about that, and guys like Jack Delta who remember that, and some other veterans like Nicholas Crenton from the yard. I mean, do you want to talk about some of those days at GBYWN for the audience?
Sure, yeah. Unfortunately, I did not come up with the GBYWN.
That was like an OBGYN. I was like,
and that was the joke for quite a while. Every time they try to change it, so that's the name of the community, the Alliance, as we would call it sometimes.
I got that.
A coalition of different promotions all over the world. But we called it what was originally the Global Backyard Wrestling News Forum, and then became the Global Backyard Wrestling Nation. And people would argue, I don't want to change the name, or I would change it to this, that, and anyway. So ultimately, it was still the GBYWN. And we had these promotions all over the world. I actually have the World Championship belt over there now.
Oh, wow.
Technically, I was never the champion, but I do own the belt, weirdly enough. But it's phenomenal because you see the independent wrestling shows today. People are traveling around, and
well, Jack Delta, he travels all over the place. Aaron Blaze, he travels all over the place. Chase Wakefield, I mean, Sean Jovi's traveling. The guys before they went to pro, the IMF guys, they were traveling. I mean, a lot of guys here tonight, they travel, and I give them so much respect because guys like you and others, go to different states and 4-hour rides, 5-hour, 8-hour, 10-hour drives. To go to these shows, and I just have all my respect in the world for all you guys, and just
thank you.
I
always say everyone should definitely get trained, and everyone should understand what they're doing in the ring and all that. But I feel like the yard is such a great place to understand traveling, and that's something that a lot. Like if you just train at one school and you're going to one show at that one school, you don't really understand the amount of time and effort that it takes to go on the road. And for us in the yard days, I would travel from Las Vegas to Chicago.
I was like, wow, you flew even. I mean, we have guys even like Anthony Steele, big shout out to him, and I don't even think he flies. I mean, you were flying to shows. I mean, that's, hope you had a right frequent flyer mile card.
I went from Las Vegas drove to Salt Lake City, Utah. I won the GBYWN United States Championship from a couple people who came from Idaho. Then
Wow. Did they come with an Idaho potato also, by the way? Did they come with an Idaho potato?
So I would drive back to Vegas, fly out to Anderson, Indiana, defend it there.
Okay.
Then I would fly back to Vegas, fly out to Bethlehem, and lose it to somebody who lived in New Jersey, who would then defend in New Jersey. It was a legitimate U.S. title.
Was it BXW or BWX?
BXW, yeah. BXW was the Bethlehem Extreme Wrestling Company that I would end up helping book for a couple of years. That was phenomenal. That's where guys like Alex Zane really started to blow up in that area and stuff. Even though he lived in Kentucky, he would come up here and have these incredible matches.
I love it. I love it all. That just, to me, was what wrestling, and I was hearing things today, and one guy was fighting with the other guy. And this is what it's about. Forget about all that stuff. We got to stop killing each other. This is what we're bonded by. We're all in it for the same reasons. And thank you for bringing that up. Absolutely. I agree. The stepdads versus the bad sons, a dream match. You know what? Somebody's out there knowing that, want to say here from Ethan, just want to say, Rad, that I really hope that you'll remain the champion at Grimomania. And I hope that Grim will become the new champion. Let me ask you then a follow-up. I know we have plenty more comments. Hang on tight for a second. I want to ask you this question formally. What does it mean to you to be the GTS IC and US champion?
I'm really glad you brought that up because you were saying earlier, like one of our commenters said, I'm all about records. I want to set records. So because I'm a guy that I've trained at a couple different places. I obviously have traveled all over the place. I'm kind of a nomad. I'm a journeyman. I don't have a home base. You know what I mean? Never did. And even I got to this point. Anybody can do this. If they put in the determination of the will, they can do this. So this title over here has been held by people like Thunder Rosa. Okay? This title over here, defended by the very first IC title match, had Low Life Louie in it. Guys like Rhett Titus, ROH World TV Champion. Rhett Titus had this. Jimmy Rave is a former.
Well, once upon a time, famously, MJF and GTS. I mean, I know it's off the topic slightly, but you never know. You just never know out there.
And that's the great thing about these titles is there's such a great history behind them with wrestlers that, by any definition of wrestling, they matter. And they did an incredible. They've done incredible things in this company, and then in the other companies and around the world. And they started, or at least got a big break in GTS. And now I'm here. I'm the very first guy to ever defend both these titles simultaneously in the history of GTS. We're talking from 2014 when Grim started doing Grim's Toy Show, 2016 when he started doing normal weekly wrestling shows. Only one other man has held both at the same time. I'm the first one to ever defend both at the same time, and I'm doing it at Grimomania. Both these belts will be in the sky in that ladder match, on the line. It's not one or the other. It's both on the line at the same time. That's the kind of history I want to bring to this.
I know you get asked a lot of things. I know you've done a lot of interviews, but let me ask you this question, piggybacking off that. Is this the biggest match of your career upcoming?
Absolutely. No hesitation. And I'll tell you why. Grimomania every year is the most viewed show on Grim's Toy Show. No doubt. This is a match against a man that we're like 2-2. He's beaten me twice. I've beaten him twice.
It's the rubber match. It's the rubber match.
It's the ultimate rubber match. It's like a best of 5. It's not even a best of 3. We both had dispute over the IC title. He's never gotten a shot against the U.S. Championship. The only reason I even got a shot was because of our dispute. And now I got both belts. Like all of this since November has tied into our rivalry. And that's why, I mean, I don't think anybody else even has close to this long of a rivalry at GTS right now. It's us.
No.
It feels absolutely huge to have it as a ladder match.
And I think also what's also interesting is we're here with the GTS IC and US champion, one half of the stepdads, Mr. Rad Radley Belmont. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters here. And thank you so much if you're out there for tuning in, whether you're on Twitch, YouTube, or Twitter. And if you're here on Sportzwire Radio for the first time, please hit that sub button for us on YouTube at Sportzwire Radio 6570. But I think what's also interesting about this match, I know there's a lot of comments. I'm going to get to everybody. People, they're dying to talk to you, and I know people don't want to hear little old me. But I think what's interesting is that you guys are different but are similar, and you guys are similar in this. Right now, you've been red hot. You've been red hot with the stepdads for a while, but Mikey, again, I know Mikey. He's red hot right now. You talked about even UWF. TF Crew we're going to get to in a little while. He's been red hot these last few months. You've been red hot. So in a way, I think that really what's interesting about this match is really the winner has bragging rights, not only in the match and winning these championships, but also I think being maybe one of the most, dominant wrestlers right now in terms of wins and losses of late anywhere you go.
I mean, I'll throw a very controversial opinion. At least I think it'll be controversial. You have two, like exactly what you said, you have two rising stars right now. I'm on a hot streak like never before in my career. I can honestly say that. I am having a dominant streak right now. I am more motivated than ever. I feel better than ever. I got 2 championships. I didn't know if I had any championships. I got 2 now. And then you got Mike Anarchy. That guy, I don't know. He had like 15 million belts the last time I saw him.
I know. That was kind of the running joke on one of the shows. And then
but either way, he's got a lot of championships in other divisions. He has that deathmatch style. So we have 2 completely different people coming up at the same time meeting for what will be the most viewed show of the year at GTS. So here's the controversial part. I feel like this GTS Workhorse Double Crown is the title on YouTube. I feel like these are the title because there's 2 of them. You got the 2 hottest commodities. I understand that the GTS Ultimo title is big. Grimm's in the big Grimm Mania match for the title. I feel like this is the thing. This is it here. This is what the Workhorse is all about.
I wanted to ask you, and again, I'm going to get to people. I know there's people messaging me and private messaging me in comments, but I want to ask you this question. And I just watched you in EBW Pro, and then I'm going to see you in Grimmania.
Yeah.
And how do you work yourself up to where you go from let's say wrestling in front of 30 people, 40 people, an environment that company. They know you, but they don't know you. But then you're going on Grimmania, and you know that you're going to have 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 views. I'm just curious because, again, a lot of wrestlers are here, a lot of different people. How do you go and psychologically, kind of turn it on? And, not just turn it on in Grimmania, but turn it on in places that, you're wrestling in a crowd. Doesn't even have to be EBW Pro. It could be anywhere that they don't know you. And it's like, you're going through the motions, as they would say.
Oh, I understand that. I try really hard to never go through the motions, as you said there. And that's something that's not always easy. I've wrestled in front of 8 people. I've wrestled in front of no people. I've wrestled in front of 300 people. I've wrestled in front of Virgil. So I've wrestled in a lot of interesting scenarios.
That was at the Rock and Roll Express match, right? Wasn't Virgil in the building there? And all
he was there, and he watched the whole thing, as well as one of the Bushwhacker. I think it was Bushwhacker Luke.
Because I think one of them is in Australia. He doesn't travel anymore. The other one's here in Florida.
But a quick side note, we went to the back, and he said, "Hey, kids, come over here." Even though we're our age, we're still kids to him. He goes, "You guys just wrestled Rock Roll Express, right?" And I went, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "They're pretty good, huh?" I went, "Yes, sir. They're pretty good. Yes."
All right. Well, you answered my question. Basically, you go out there, it doesn't make a difference. And
exactly.
Nicholas Crenson kind of referenced the AIM when we were talking about the AIM chats. It's I just had the line here. It's a razor's edge, just a razor's edge off a ladder. Ice-T he meant to always say refreshing. No, I don't think we're talking about that Ember Moon. No. Yeah, we got that. Nate wants to ask you barbecue Pringles.
Barbecue Pringles?
Yeah.
I'll give anything a try. I was having barbecue Lays earlier. It's like the same thing, right?
Okay. I lock my doors. No stepdads getting in. That's reference to the
Listen, when there's a will, there's a stepdad. Okay.
Would you rather fight Adam Rose or Matt Cardona, Mr. Rad Dad?
Matt Cardona, absolutely. Let's make it happen.
Why not? He's the indie darling right now, and the stepdads maybe are the hottest indie wrestling team altogether. Wish list match, the Foundation, which is Sean Jovi is a part of it. Summer Bash in Ohio. You know what? You never know. I mean, that's a question. Summer Bash guys need to get in touch with the stepdads. Would you say that Grimm is being an amazing mentor to you But I don't think I'm gonna actually disagree with you because I don't think Grimm's a mentor to you at all. In fact, I think Grimm's a peer with you because you've got quite a history with Grimm, and I definitely don't think, with all due respect to this question, Grimm is a peer, not a mentor.
I absolutely agree with that. All respect in the world to Grimm.
Oh, for sure. What he's done to build that company and to build that empire and juggernaut to be number 7 in the world, basically like with nothing. I mean, more power to him. I just don't think that he's a mentor to you because, well, you guys are peers because you can talk about your history with him. That's
absolutely. No, you nailed it on the head. We are definitely peers. He sees it that way just as I do. Love him to death. You can't have that many haters unless you're doing something right. That's what I always say. But I'll actually explain the very first time I ever met Grimm because I debuted for GTS in 2022. I almost debuted for GTS in 2018 because I was on a show with Grimm, a company called, I think it was Jersey Premier Championship Wrestling, which I thought was really weird because sometimes it was on the outskirts of Jersey, almost in New York.
Okay, I know what that is. Okay, I know exactly.
It wasn't very premier, and there were no championships. So the entire name of the company made no sense. But they did have Grimm on one of their shows. And after we had our match, we had a match with Smiley and I believe it was Smiley and Everett Cross, whatever it was. We wrestled them, and then we waited in the back to talk to Grimm. We wanted to get on the show. We'd heard some great things. We had wrestled the Beach Bums, who had just had, I think they had just had Grimmomania with the Beach Bums maybe a month or two earlier. And during that show, we are sitting at the curtain waiting for Grimm to come back. And 2 men jumped into the ring and attacked Grimm. Literally assaulted him in the ring because of his GTS show and how they thought it was beneath them and beneath pro wrestling. I thought after an event like that the police were called and a lot of real situations went down in the back. He probably wouldn't want to talk to a guy who was on that roster. So I did not reach out to him. But a couple years later, we had a good chat. He didn't even remember us being there. That's the funniest part. But, we have a good laugh about it now.
Well, and you know what? We're all laughing because Grimm's got, 1 million plus subscribers, and he's also transformed his body, and he seems to always get the upper hand over Jimmy Controversy, which I'm not going to ask you on. But, I'm going to leave that at that. But let me get to this. If you had to fight one GTS legend from the past, who would you like to fight?
One from the past. I mean, I already mentioned Thunder Rosa. Give me Thunder Rosa.
It's a good one. And she's now back in action. I'd pay to see Red. I'd pay to see you versus Orange Cassidy or R-Truth. Okay. Bray Wyatt documentary. Yes, check that out. The chair shot from the pen name still has to be going to this day from when you went to Anderson. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, that's kind of my breaking out moment. Like I said, I was the United States champion at the time. I went to Anderson, Indiana for Indiana Championship Wrestling. And during that show, a man named the pen name who is famous for chair shots lit me up with one of his, if not his best chair shot ever. And taking that chair shot like I did, which I don't recommend. I don't recommend chair shots to the head, people. But that's something that I did back then, 2009. Got me a lot of respect with the wrestlers there and really launched my name out there to new promotions and things like that. So I always say, get out there. Oh, also, I flew out on my own, completely alone at like age 20 or whatever I was. A lot of respect from those people to see a guy that they didn't think I'd even show up, and here I was getting, hit in the head with a chair.
Well, it's like you always said. Listen, it's like you always said. You never know by showing up. If somebody offers you something, you go there, and you can make something happen. And here you are today, and and that's why I come up here on the screen with all these promotions that you've worked for in your career. I mean, I said it to kind of introduce you. You are like the definition of a pro wrestler. You're like a working pro wrestler now. You work. I would say, I don't know, 80 to 100 times a year, maybe. And, what does that mean to you when A, you work that much and, B, all these companies that you've worked for? That's, quite an accomplishment, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want it to sound like a brag. I want it to sound like something a lot of wrestlers should strive to do. I wrestle 2 to 3 times a week. Sometimes I wrestle 4 times a week. I mean, I've wrestled entire 8-man tournaments on a Thursday, and then Friday I'm at Sanctuary Pro. Saturday I'm somewhere in Connecticut. Like, I love traveling. I have since I was a teenager. I love wrestling. If you really want to be successful, it's about showing your face in as many places as possible. My very first gig in all of wrestling was in a barn for a local TV shot for Susquehanna Wrestling Organization.
Okay.
Still active.
Pennsylvania, yep.
I was going to be the commentator that day. I was supposed to be just the commentator for the live broadcast.
January 10th, 2016.
Exactly. And I ended up having a triple threat match. That was my debut that day. A couple months later, my very first live event in front of a real live audience. I think there was something like 200 people there. I just showed up and was on ring crew. I wasn't asked to be there that day. I was with some friends who was going to be on the show. I showed up. Next thing I know, I'm wrestling the promoter in the opening match. It went great. And I was on the shows for the next 2 years. You just got to show up. Everybody asks me, how do I get on this? How do I get on that? What do I do? You just show up, and you might not be on that first show, but you're going to be on the show eventually because the promoter's going to pick you because you're literally standing there compared to someone else that wants $100, $200 that lives 3 states away. It's going to be you. You just got to show up.
I always hear guys always tell me, keep your gear by you and always be ready. Guys tell me that, all the time. And I had to ask you because I do want to get to some other places you're working at from friends of the show, which I promised to plug. I'm going to do that shortly. But I have to ask you about, you wrestled for Warriors of Wrestling, which is actually literally a few miles from my house. I can't quite walk there, but I could definitely get there by car within about 15 minutes. I've passed by the facilities very often. It's on Victory Boulevard, down in kind of like, it's like a weird area in Staten Island. And you've wrestled at Warriors of Wrestling, and you wrestled Sonny Kiss there once upon a time. And
that's right.
What was it like going down there in a place that's kind of like, I consider like the Boondocks almost of Staten Island, and the Warriors of Wrestling?
I feel like most wrestling, you could say it's in a weird area. But anyway, I digress.
Well, yeah, probably so. But I just, knowing that area, I've always like, that's a weird area. That's just like, it's just,
I agree. I felt that way going to the CZW dojo the last couple of months because I was going there every Monday. And every time I'd go there, I'd be like, where are we exactly? Like, what is this? Like, it's night. It looks industrial. Like, are there any stores around? Like, are there people around here? I don't even know. But the stepdads, Rad Dad and Papa Bear, debuted for Warriors of Wrestling during a couple of their tapings. The very first show we had, we wrestled twice that day.
Oh, wow.
I wrestled some guys like Mr. Grimm, former United States champion. I'm getting mixed up with the belts again. Former U.S. champion. A couple other guys, and Sonny Kiss, somebody that not only did I know back in the Yard days, because like I said, this alliance, the GBWN, was very legit. We had very legit talent. Sonny Kiss already doing great things on the indies, would still come by once in a while. I teamed with Sonny Kiss in their last match in the Yard days. Next thing you know, I'm wrestling Sonny at SWO in that barn I mentioned. Next thing you know, I'm wrestling Sonny at Warriors of Wrestling. I would tell people all the time, I go, how about I wrestle Sonny tonight? And they go, oh, Sonny? Yeah, look at all these matches I had with AEW superstar Sonny Kiss. Like, people don't know. There's such a great community.
Did you know that Sonny Kiss would go on and be, certainly a well-known talent? Did you know it, like, in the Yard? Maybe not at that moment at Warriors of Wrestling, but, like, just talk to us about that.
I had all the faith in the world. I think the first time my team was Sonny was maybe 2014, 15?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I have a photo of us hanging out together, and we look so young. I have super short hair. We're just.
Well, I noticed. Yeah, you've only really in the last few years had the hair long. I mean, you were kind of you mentioned the sport jacket days, the sunglasses. I mean, I'm going to talk about a match that Jovi wants me to talk about toward the end. But I mean, you always haven't looked like this. So yeah, I mean, you like you said, you went through a body transformation, but also a look transformation.
I was pretty much the embodiment of what a weatherman looks like, pretty much, or maybe a game show host.
Well, my mother used to always say that I had a voice to be a weatherman. I was like, I don't know. And I went into the world of politics, sadly, and I probably should have, but I'm here now. And speaking of game shows, I actually tried out for
Yeah.
I tried out when I was in college for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So I actually tried out for it. So,
Well, yeah, good for you. That's good. I love when, just make the effort. Just give it, like we said, just show up.
I went to the ABC studios. I took the test, and they gave me a mouse pad, and it was and a pencil. That's my I have it somewhere. So.
Oh man, I almost worked for CBS News at one point, and the only reason I didn't get it because it was 2008 and it was a recession. So the position I was going to get was just completely eliminated, or I would have got it.
Yes, I was just entering into college then, so I remember it very well. Sadly, so
there you go. Yeah, but no, I wanted to change and look. I literally looked the same since I was a child. I had the same haircut forever, and just I want to be the rad dad. I want to look good. I want to have that Michael P.S. Hayes with my Terry Gordy as Bam Bam, or with Papa Bear. Like we changed it up because he used to have long hair and I had short hair. Next thing you know, we change it up and we go, well, this is the next look for the next decade. Like we're having a great time the way we look. So I love the long hair. I mean, at some point I'm gonna have to cut it. It's getting a little thin. But it just it fits the aesthetic.
Well, you never know. Listen, I mean, I've got mutton chops. I mean, my hair is pretty long. I don't know. It looks good for me.
It's
I don't
true.
know.
I keep live the dream. Keep believing. I'm gonna keep believing too.
Thankfully, my bank account has some dreams that I can live off for a long time. But that's a different conversation for a different time. But
right.
Speaking though of obviously you obviously wrestle Sonny Kiss, and I have to also ask you about Hornswoggle because you were in the ring with Hornswoggle, and that's a guy that another guy that's fans love him in independent shows. And what was that experience like? I know he teamed with Tommy Joe Floyd that day, and what was your memories of that?
Hornswoggle was awesome. He was also very jet lagged. He showed up super exhausted.
Oh wow!
I don't know what he was doing. I don't know where he came from.
I'm not going to ask live on sports, but we're on a live studio audience, so I'm not.
There you go, exactly. But much like the Hornswoggle you see on TV, he just popped up out of nowhere and was ready to wrestle. And I remember we were in the back. And we were the most. I would say they were literally the most popular wrestlers in that company. That was True Wrestling. I highly recommend looking them up. Tony Deppen had great matches. Orange Cassidy defended the independent wrestling title there once or twice. Great company.
IWTV used to show them, no?
Yes, yeah, we were on those shows. Yeah, we were on with Billy Gunn, and he was spanking people, and I was like, well, I guess we're not doing spanks tonight. We're gonna look at ripping him off, stuff like that.
One.
But we're in the back, and we're about to have this match, and they play our music first, and the crowd erupts. It was in this high school, so it was packed venue. Crowd goes nuts, and I just remember Hornswoggle was looking down. And then he looks up at us and just goes, oh, great, I'm going to have to try now. And so we go out. Yeah, so we go out and we were like, oh, yeah, we're having a good time. He comes out and the crowd gives him a good reaction. He runs into the crowd. He goes into the bleachers. He makes a show of it to get this crowd to go nuts for him. And it works. He gets them to go nuts for it. And then the rest of the time, he's just trying to rib us. The guys are doing arm ringers and he's yelling, wrong arm, you're doing the wrong arm. And they would look at what they're doing. And he's just trying to mess with us during the match. I got bicycle kicked in the face by
yes.
Yeah, I got bicycle kicked in the face, and I'm literally, laying on the turnbuckle, and Hornswoggle runs by, and he goes, "Ha! You got kicked in the face!" and just runs away.
Wow!
I'm like, what's happening? He stole somebody's water. They had a jug of water.
Yes, because he went and because it was on the side of where the turnbuckle was. Yeah, I remember that spot. Yes,
he was just messing around the entire match, but in a hilarious way. I absolutely loved it. It was so funny, and he was a great guy. We got to do at the end of the match. We all
you guys all came out. Yeah, there was the embracing of the faces. That was pretty.
Yeah, it couldn't have been a better experience. I absolutely love that guy. He was great. He was absolutely great.
And I have a couple more comments here, and let's go to them. I might turn on CBS News, turns TV on. Who's that dude? Dude introduces himself. My name is Riley Belmont, and the weather will be rain.
Riley Belmont.
Yeah.
Belmont.
Swoggles, you can fill in the blanks. Known fact. LOL. Okay.
I can see that. But he was funny to us. He was very funny.
I don't know. I mean, I'll trust Sean Jovi's judgment. If he's saying it, it speaks volumes if Sean Jovi is. I wanted to ask you also about, and everything you've done in the ring. You've obviously done a lot of things, but is there one or two moments so far in your career that stand out most?
I mean, geez, there's so many moments, but to me, I am such a lover of old school wrestling, NWA wrestling, Southern style wrestling. That is my bread and butter. I absolutely love it. I grew up on it. The very first wrestling show I ever remember watching was Clash of the Champions 1 with
Oh,
Sting,
wow.
Flair, you
Okay.
know, like Horsemen, all that kind of stuff. That's what I grew up on. I was a WCW guy through and through. So that being said, my favorite tag team of all time is the Rock and Roll Express. And being able to not only wrestle them, which I've seen, I looked up footage of them wrestling other independent tag teams, 6-7 minutes in front of like 50 people, you know, they put in the work, but it is what it is. We got to wrestle them on a totally different level. The International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame had
That was a
debuted.
big crowd there. It was like
It was
felt like a big fight field. That was not like, okay.
It was huge.
Yeah.
It was in a hockey venue. It was at least 300 people. Could have been
the
more.
Albany River Rats play there, if I'm pretty sure. It's the Albany River Rats, who were the New Jersey Devils affiliate. So I know.
There you go. Yeah, and we one time we walked out with New Jersey Devils hockey jerseys.
There you go. What a small world.
Exactly. But we got to do that. We're in front of people like Virgil and Sonny and a whole bunch of people there. The next year, Booker T was there watching our matches. But going back to that first year, main event, special attraction. They called it a dream match in the advertising. I don't know whose dream match it was other than mine. I really wanted to have that dream match. But either way, we're to have that match. And it wasn't just 6 minutes. It wasn't just, we're going through the motions.
No, that was like, I mean, you guys really worked like a lot of like psychology. You worked a lot of like, emotions into that match. I mean,
and then that's the thing, yeah. When we started talking to them, they're like, okay, well, we could work about this, we could talk about that, and he goes, there was like a pause, and Ricky goes, who are you guys? What do you do? and I was like, and I literally started by saying, well, we're the stepdads. We spank people. And he looks at us for a second, and I was like, this now or never. It's either going to be a great time or a terrible time. And he looks at, Ricky looks at Robert, and he goes, these boys, they don't want to wrestle. They want to work tonight. We're going to have fun tonight. Let's have some fun. And next thing you know, they're just lively. They're having the time of, oh, yeah, let's have a great time. We'll go out there. And we wrestled a lot of that match on the fly. Wrestled a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot of like psychology, a lot of like, the spots you did. It wasn't many, but it was a lot of like you made what you didn't in the moment mean so much more than it would have. And I think that it told the story. The story was that you guys, or you specifically, idolized the Rock and Roll Express. And it was a matter of like, who wants to go in there and lock horns with these guys? And, who wants to go out there and prove they can hang? And, when you hung in there with them, it took you a while, and there was kind of a back and forth, and, and it kind of showed that story of, you wrestling your idols. I think that was what I took away from that match.
And what I loved about it was that I don't know how other teams do it, because like I said, they seem to have like a 6 to 8 minute match that they do a lot of the time. We wrestled almost 15, 20 minutes.
I was going to say, yeah, it was like 14 minutes without the intros.
And not only that, but they wanted to wrestle our style. They wanted to have comedy. They wanted to, and for them, for that type of Southern team, where I think of like Ricky Morton bloody in the cage in North Carolina in front of that crowd. Like,
how about the 60-minute matches with Flair back in the day?
Like working the Midnight Express, the 60-minute draws, just brawling the whole time. For a guy like that to look at what we were doing and go, I want to do that tonight. That was such it was such a seal of approval that I never even considered to happen. And the fact that after the match, they were thrilled with how it went. They were thrilled with everything we did. He was as happy as could be. Where he was telling me old Flair stories and stuff about like being in Philly with Flair and stuff, all sorts of great stuff. And then at the end of the match, I end up taking Ricky Morton's Canadian Destroyer, which I believe was one of his last ever. It's so amazing. The president of the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame was actually filmed it himself and then posted it everywhere he could because he thought it was like the best moment of the entire show. He absolutely loved that Ricky Morton did a Canadian Destroyer at our event. I couldn't be happier with how that went. That was so cool, and for him to. I think it was 62 and 63 were their ages at the time. For them to still be having fun, they're ribbing each other in the back. They're still finding so much enjoyment. They weren't jaded. I hope when I'm that old, whether I'm wrestling or not, I hope I'm still at least fit enough to continue wrestling. I don't want to be jaded. I don't want to think about it as like the wrestling world's passed me by. Or
did they give you or anybody in the locker room advice? Was there any advice that they shared? I mean, I know it's tough in a locker room because, guys, I ask this question all the time with people, but did they give you advice in any way about, handling things? I mean, I know you guys, even from that moment, have really blown up in a lot of ways in the scene. But did they give advice to you at all in any way?
They did. So what they taught me wasn't like what they literally said. It was stuff they did. And so the one piece of advice I could absolutely give to everybody out there is know what I'm saying here. Listen to me carefully. Every match you will ever have, there will be mistakes. Every single match you will ever have in your entire career. Even when you think it's perfect, somebody will think something went wrong or something messed up. Every single match you have will have mistakes. The key to being a great pro wrestler is to learn through experience and through training how to cover up every mistake you will ever have. And any match you think is perfect, I guarantee you, if you ask those wrestlers, they go, "Oh yeah, this went weird, that went weird. I went in the ring."
I would equate it like if you're a musician and you play live and you missed a note or you missed a part of the song. If you're a singer, you do it. If you cover yourself up so the audience won't know that the mistake happened. So if you're in the ring and something happens, you try to not let the audience know that. So you keep going. You always keep going. You do something. You don't stop. You don't act like something wrong happened. You just keep going. Because the minute you stop, the people know. And the people may not be sophisticated enough to know at that moment, but they'll know if you stop. So I thought that's, really, really good advice. Let me say hello to a few other people. My buddy, Mr. James Taylor, the Nemesis. He says, hello, Tom and Mr. Rad. Hollywood Hulk Hogan was my favorite in WCW. That's certainly a lot of people's favorites in WCW. That's for sure. But, you brought up Virgil, and unfortunately, he passed away. And do you have any memories of Virgil? I know you probably get asked this a lot, but I feel like I'm obligated to ask.
I mean, I only got to meet Virgil once, but it was memorable because that night, Sunny specifically asked to have her own pizza. So she had her own pizza there, and then at some point in the show, she just left.
I don't think she's getting a request to have pizza now these days because she's in a prison somewhere for who knows.
But if you're wondering who ended up with that pizza, it was Virgil. So watching Virgil eat Sunny's pizza while watching the main event in the last 2 or 3 matches, it's a very Virgil moment. I really appreciate that. I got to see
that. Between Virgil and Sunny, I don't know where to go, but just move away from that and say, did you hear about the kid trying to catch the rain? He missed. That's a good one there. That's a very good one.
I appreciate that.
That was a good one. But I think it's a good time for me, before I get to some current events, I want to present to you something. I know you do these interviews all the time. I know you ask you the same questions, and I certainly have a few other things I want to ask you that, aren't what you get used to, but I would like to present to you something. And I don't know, if you'd like me to, I would be more than happy if I could. I mean, some people are like, well, I don't know. DVG was like, when I presented him something, it was kind of like, well, I don't know if I should get it, but only if you insist, because you are Rad Dad, you are one half of the stepdads, but I would like to, for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, where all wrestling matters, present to you something here on the screen that hopefully you would take as a token of appreciation.
I'm ready.
All right, so for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, on this date here, April 1st, 2024, we have declared it on all of our Sportswire Radio platforms. It is Rad Dad Radley Belmont Day. So whether it's here on YouTube at Sportswire Radio 6579, Twitch at Sportswire Radio, Twitter at Thomas Price 2017, Instagram at The Sports Report 2021, Tumblr at Sportswire Radio, Facebook at Sportswire Radio, and of course, SportswireRadio.org, and even my LinkedIn page, because I do have LinkedIn. It has now been officially declared Rad Dad Radley Belmont Day on all of our platforms. I just want to say thank you for all that you've done here for this sport. And I wanted to give you something that would, show a token of appreciation.
I gotta say, April Fool's Day, no more.
No April Fool's. This is not
Rad's
April
Day.
Fool's, ladies and gentlemen. I wrote it. I signed it. It's my John Hancock. It's my logo. This is not an April Fool's. I wanted to present to you something that really, illustrates what you've meant to this sport and everything about all wrestling matters. And, being the definition of a working wrestler and, just being here with us. And, like I said, to me, I know you've done thousands of podcasts. I am going to continue to emphasize it. I know that they ask you the same questions. They probably know you. Maybe they don't know you. Maybe they watched the match. Maybe they didn't. But I really feel like tonight, even though you've never been here before, we've never formally met, you were home tonight. I know we'll have a lot more to ask you still, but to me, you were home because you were in an environment where people know you. They've looked up to you. They believe in you. And they're hearing you here for the first time. And, maybe for a lot of people, it's surreal to see you here because, they watch you on GTS. They've seen you on social media. You have 14,000 followers on Facebook. You have, thousands of followers here, thousands of followers there. GTS shows get, 10,000 plus views and, matches you're in. But to me, you're in an environment of people that, they were you. And, they want to be you. And, that's why it's an honor to have you here. And, I don't take it for granted. And we just wanted to say thank you for all that you've done here in this sport.
Well, I got to say thank you back because this is incredible. And I, as a guy who didn't know if he'd ever wrestle even in a backyard, as a guy who didn't know he'd ever wrestle in an independent ring, any ring at all, I mean, I'm just glad I got the opportunity to do it. And then when I got the opportunity, I went for it. And I really hope, and I know the people who are watching and listening now that know me, they did the same thing and they went for it. And now look at them. They're living life to the fullest. And that's all I ever wanted to do. And that's all I want anyone to do. So I appreciate what you've done here tonight. And I appreciate everyone else watching that has known me and will get to know me over time. I appreciate them just as much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Let me ask you another question. I know you've never been asked this question before. I'm guaranteed that you haven't. I see what you and Wade have done, your tag team partner. I've seen what you've done in GTS. I've seen you in different promotions. I'm going to talk about TF Crew next and EBW Pro because these are two companies that are friends of the show. And these are people that I know like the back of my hand. And I'm so curious on what you think about this. And because I know you haven't been asked this before, but have you ever considered, or what would it mean to you to be one day ranked in the PWI 500?
Oh man. I mean, to be honest, it would mean a lot because I'm very big on having not just like something physically to solidify that I've done something in wrestling, obviously the championships, things like that.
Sure.
But to have that kind of record where whether it's being on a show, being on a list of some sort that other great people that I grew up watching have been on, like to hold like an NWA title, for example, me being such an NWA fan in the past, that would mean a lot.
Right.
The PWI is the same way.
Well, I think the PWI, the definition of it is a wrestler that wrestles, all throughout, up and down the United States or, elsewhere, and there's a guy I'm friends with, Vito Fratelli, who I asked him the question of being in the PWI 500, and a month later, he was ranked. And I think that, you've wrestled not just in GTS, but we put up the photo and I'll put it back up in a few minutes of all the companies that you've wrestled. And to me, that's the definition of somebody that should be ranked up there in the PWI 500, because I'll bet a lot of money that you wrestle actually more than guys in WWE, more than guys in AEW yearly, more than guys in Impact, and maybe more than guys in MLW. Those are four of the big companies in the United States. And we know GTS is already more viewed than Ring of Honor. So to me, based on those qualifications, based on where you wrestle, based on how many times you wrestle and where and what you've done, I think not only should you be ranked, I would like to go further and say that your tag team partner, Wade Kruger, should be ranked as well, because I think of, again, all those check marks, you guys check them.
I agree. It's really all about that recognition. To have the PWI crew realize that. The Pro Wrestling Illustrated writers see that. And we're just going to keep grinding. We're going to keep grinding. We're going to go to these promotions until it's undeniable.
Well, it's definitely going to be that one day you'll be in there as soon as this year. I want to say hello to one of our buddies who I have some merchandise for, and I hope that we can induct him into our Hall of Fame very soon. The good guy, CJ Black. He is the ROEW World Heavyweight Champion. Maybe he'll wrestle you one day. He was in a 400-seat venue not too long ago, did a fantastic job, and he says, nice Sportswire night. He's happy to be here. We're happy to have him, and we hope that we can have everybody here in this sport. But I want to go to current events here because I got to bring him up. First of all, I want to talk about EBW Pro for a few minutes. You made your debut there, ironically, in the same venue that we saw you in there with GTS and Pro Wrestling Venom. You wrestled EJ Rodriguez and Luchados, and talk about that, and what was it like? Many of my friends that you're wrestling that company, like Ego and the infamous Montana, their champion, and Chaos Conspiracy. I mean, pretty much I know literally everybody there that wrestles in that company. So if I don't mention them, I'm gonna probably be hung by the locker room, literally. So I have to. No, they won't hang me. We're all they're friends of the show. They're coming back on, but I had to obviously mention just your experience there and what was it like in in the EBW Pro show.
I mean, I am very excited to debut for new promotions. I don't get to do it too often. I obviously see me going all over the place.
Yep.
But a lot of times I join a new promotion, I'm going for their tag team.
You could have just stayed actually in the same venue because it was 2 weeks earlier. You could have just lived Blockbuster for the 2 weeks and just say,
no lie. I won the United States Championship in that venue. The first time I've ever been in that venue. Won the United States title in that Rumble. And right after, people are going, oh, when can we see you wrestle again? And I'm like, about 2 weeks from now in this same venue. Just come back in 2 weeks, And, I'm very excited when I get to debut for new promotions, especially with my partner Wade, because we get to get into that tag team division.
Yep.
We're 8-time tag team champions.
And that's a deep tag division. There's some good teams there.
Oh,
Chaos Conspiracy, Ego, you could be.
And I'm excited. I'm excited. Even like Iron and Crimson, who are now the tag team champions. Yep. I want to take them on. I want to have the best tag team matches in EBW history. That's what I'm all about. I was the same way wrestling at NYCW, Pizza Party Wrestling, like all these places. That I want to have the best tag team match this company will ever see. That's my goal. And if we win the championships on top of it, that's just icing on the cake as well. I want to have those title shots.
Absolutely. No question about that. And I think that in EBW Pro, it's only a matter of time that, we'll see you there show up more often and, see that. And you can see some of the promotions there, which includes EBW Pro. And I have to now, because I'm excited about this. This I'm going to spend a few minutes on, because if I don't, I literally will get killed, because a good friend of mine happens to run a company that you're making a debut in. And I'm very excited about this here coming up. It's called the TF Crew. And again, ironically, people that you work with, like Mikey Anarchy, like Jimmy Controversy there, and certainly Mr. Gabe Sayers, and also the likes of a guy for ages. What a small world this wrestling industry is. And Mr. Doc Holliday. And you're also wrestling somebody that I know very well coming up on June 15th, and Princess Deathwish. So you have to set the tables for us here at Death Row. Because again, going a little bit in a different element, but you're certainly wrestling in a place that we're all friends with here on Sportswire and TF Crew. And Gabe, I know, is a great guy, and I root for Gabe, and on and off the air, and maybe on the air you don't always agree with him in GTS and Pro Wrestling Venom, but you are showing up here in June the 15th, and it's so fascinating you're going to be here because this is the facility that Mario Mancini and Paul Roma run in. So this is kind of like another cool thing, and Gabe is obviously being mentored by them. And talk to me about what you're thinking on June 15th, where you're wrestling Princess Deathwish at the TF Crew's Death Row show.
I mean, you said it there. I'm debuting for the TF Crew. I'm excited because I love debuts, but also I've never been at this venue. Once again, it's another exciting venue that I get to experience for the first time. I must say, though, since we talked about me winning this U.S. title down there, Gabe Sayers also in that battle royal. Technically, I beat Gabe Sayers that night. Just saying, technically beat him that night. He did clothesline me once. Didn't quite help him in the end. But he did technically wrestle me for this title. Now, that is what sparked my interest for the TF crew. I'm seeing what the TF crew's doing up there.
They're kicking ass. They're kicking ass.
Yeah, they're doing some awesome stuff. I want to be a part of it. So here's what's going on.
All right.
I'm debuting for the TF crew.
Okay.
Not only am I debuting for the TF crew, not only am I going to be in a locker room with greats like Doc Holliday, who I've known for, almost 15 years.
I thought that was so fascinating, when you said you knew Doc Holliday for something. Like, wait a minute, I know Doc Holliday. Really? Wow. I'm like, what a small world.
I mean, literally almost 10 years to the day ago, I was wrestling Doc Holliday in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And he was still living in Connecticut back then. So we made that happen. That was a fun main event, I'll tell you that. But I'm wrestling Princess Deathwish. And if you don't know, Princess Deathwish, all the way from Salt Lake City, Utah, I did mention winning the United States title there.
Yep.
Who was there that day?
Princess Deathwish.
Exactly. I used to hang out with Princess Deathwish on the Las Vegas Strip 15 years ago.
Well, what stays in Vegas stays in Vegas. So I'm not going to ask you those questions, but I'll
That's before my stepdad days.
Fair enough. Duly noted. But, what's that like, though? You're going into a company with people that you know for that long. I mean, what is that? That's like, I know you've said before you go into places now, I know that person, I know that person, but what is it like weird? Is it like, what is that feeling going to be like June 15th when you're at people that you've known for like ages and it's such a different time that you're in your career? What is that like?
You're right that it's weird, but it's weird in a good way.
Okay.
You get to see the evolution of them as people and as wrestlers. Princess Deathwish wasn't always Princess Deathwish. Not always into the hardcore style. So seeing that change and the look and the attitude in the style, and then getting in the ring is going to be another level because of what I used to know. So there is an atmosphere of I know it's one of those I know what I know isn't enough. I got to know more because things have changed. Does that make sense? Expect the unexpected.
Okay, but when you know somebody from years ago and you're wrestling them, do you rely back onto that, or it's a different time and you don't really go back and watch it? Because you say you always go back and watch.
Yep. I see. Here's the thing. I feel like a lot of people when they wrestle old foes from a long time ago, the reason they lose is because they're expecting the old foe from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it is. I'm going into this as if it's a completely new opponent, and as long as I do that, things will go my way. That's how I feel about it.
All right, let me ask you a different question. And I've known Gabe for a while, so I can say this with pretty solid validity. Gabe, I consider a friend, and Gabe is, been on the show a few times, and he's, again, as I stated, one of the guys that I root for. I root for him in any way possible. I don't know what advice do you give. I know Jimmy Controversy thinks the world of Gabe Sayers. If we're going to just break the fourth wall for a second, I mean, I think I can say that, with pretty strong certainty. And I don't think Jimmy Controversy is going to, try to put me in a swirly like he was put in the other day on GTS. But do you give, I try to laugh. I told you I'm trying to work on stand-up comedy because I'm doing such a bad job at this. But, do you give Gabe advice at all? Or do you I don't know, because you've been around a long time and he's putting this company out there, and they're doing different things from when he started, because he was a yarder also. He's learning from Mario Mancini and Paul Roma. That's as good as anywhere you can get for advice. But do you talk to Gabe and does he ask you for advice on anything with these shows coming up? Because actually Wade actually put on a show a few years ago. That's why I asked.
Of course. I do talk to Gabe. Only recently have we really connected in a big way. Pretty much it was the whole catalyst to getting into the TF crew. I was very curious about it. A lot of people like Mikey Anarchy were bringing it up so much. Obviously, on this show,
Gabe along, we're going shooting in a good way. He goes Gabe for 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, something like that.
Yeah, and I've gone out of my way to watch nearly, because I'm not done yet, nearly every TF crew show on.
Well, okay, you know what? I don't know if I've watched every show, so I mean, God bless you.
I'm a big proprietor of when I go to a new company, I want to know everything about it.
I've watched the last 4 or 5 shows, but I don't know if I've watched every one just because it's so hard. But I love what they've done recently. I've watched the most recent stuff. But yeah, it's that's pretty cool though. You go back and watch everything from that moment. I mean,
listen. Whether it's good or bad, I love bad wrestling as much as I love good wrestling. So really, it doesn't matter either way.
All wrestling matters is what I say. So I mean, to me, I can't say any wrestling is bad, because it's all wrestling matters. But I'm done.
Exactly, all wrestling matters. And so getting to watch that stuff, learning about TF Crew, how interesting the history is of it. How it's taking some of the guys from the UWF, some other places, putting them together.
And new wrestling, new underground wrestling. Our friends here, and Gabe is close with them. I think they're also looking at some other play. I think NUW, I think, comes to mind. Obviously guys like Hardcore have been a part of there. He was in, also guys like from, Obey, Carnage Cups. You have a lot of different versatile, and they're not Jeff Nova. Jeff Nova's a part of it. So it's like, it's not just a hardcore deathmatch company. A lot of people would say, and you've watched his most recent work. And I don't look at TF Crew and say, okay, that's just, another, hardcore deathmatch company. No, they give you like a really cool variety of stuff. And Gabe spoke about that when I had him back on about like 2 months ago. So, that's.
And I think every successful wrestling promotion is all flavors of ice cream. You want to have.
I always say it's Baskin Robbins, 31 flavors. You never know what you're going to get.
Exactly. And especially when you don't know what you're going to get, it's very exciting. So you can't really be disappointed.
No, and we're definitely not disappointed. You can follow the TF Crew here, TF Crew on Instagram. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. We are honored here on Sportswire Radio for a little while longer with the legendary Rad Dad himself, Radley Belmont. He is one half of the Stepdads, and of course, the Stepdads, one of the premier tag teams around in all of wrestling currently, and the guys have been in a number of different places. We've seen them in EBW Pro. We've seen them in famously places like NYCW. We've seen them also in Warriors of Wrestling by me. I mean, Triple W Wrestling. I mean, you can go up and down the list of companies they've been in. And also, Rad Dad is most notably right now the GTS US and IC champion. He is hours away from putting up that IC title on the line in a ladder match at Grimamania 8 against Mikey Anarchy, a man that I know very well. And if you're here on Sportswire Radio, please make sure you follow the Stepdads on all of their platforms. I've put the link up here in the description, so please support them. Support them in any way possible. They are on Patreon as well. They're on Rumble. They're on TikTok. They're on Threads. You name them. Go out and support the Stepdads, because you don't want to get a stepdad-like beating from these guys, because after all, you never know. Maybe they'll bring out the financial section. Maybe they'll bring out the editorials and take that paper and just, actually whip it. I have to say one thing. You're going to chuckle. Actually, I'm actually a newspaper carrier overnight. So when you actually put like the newspaper stuff, I was like, oh my God, I'm a newspaper carrier. I'm like, these guys must these are like the definition of my gimmick almost. This is like one of my jobs. I'm a newspaper carrier. I put newspapers together, every single night. And these guys would come out in the ring and, use the newspaper, in the ring. I mean, what a thing there. And I want to say hello to my buddy, Mr. Levi McDaniel. He is one of the people behind the IMF, doing a great job out there. He's on YouTube, got over 1,000+ followers. But, obviously I want to get back to a couple of other things before we sign off. But I have to ask you, I know you get asked this all the time, but why was the Ugly Ducklings the best opponents of your career? I know it was the Rock and Roll Express. They were great. Hornswoggle, Sonny Kiss, blah, 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 all these names. But it was the Ugly Ducklings that you had some matches with, that those were the matches you still say were the best in your career. And tell me why.
So if anybody who hasn't watched the Stepdads versus the Ugly Ducklings, specifically from NYCW, I think it was, what was it?
Summer. I think it was summer, August 2019. I think.
Yeah. It was somewhere in there. It was like Game Wars, Gangs in New York, or something like that.
Yeah, the first time was a 4-way fatal 4-way, and then you had the return match in August that year, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yes. So those matches, we brought the Ugly Ducklings from North Carolina all the way up to Utica.
Not from the area. I thought that was so fascinating.
Yeah, they're not even like in the same state. I don't believe. I believe one's in like Virginia and the other was in North Carolina. And they have to meet up and then go. Is that
why they're called the Ugly Ducklings?
It was nuts. But we heard about them. We would see them on Evolve and all these different places. They wrestle in Florida for Fest all the time.
Okay.
And so when we tried to get them upstate, because they didn't really wrestle upstate, but they would go upstate and then go to like Chicago, and they were the definition of traveling wrestlers. It was crazy the amount of traveling they did. We got them in NYCW. Like they're there, they're locked in. Promoter loves them. They end up getting the tag team titles, and we're like, so we're gonna wrestle him, right? And they're like, we'll get to it. And I'm like, what do you mean? We brought him in. We want to wrestle him. A year goes by, so they're the tag team champions. They lose the tag team titles. I believe it was one of their last matches there.
Yeah, and I think they didn't have many afterwards. If I'm not mistaken.
I think maybe at some point, Rob Killjoy and his manager Mikey had a couple tag matches because one of them was injured or something. But either way, we end up having this 2-on-2 match. The match right before us, it was supposed to be some sort of I don't remember the exact details, but the match goes like 5 minutes instead of the like allotted 15 minutes that they were planning. So there's a huge gap on the show. We go out there and we're going with the flow. We go with the crowd. Same with Ricky Morton and them. We were just kind of go with it. So what do we do to start? We don't lock up. We have a dance off. Next thing you know, I'm doing the worm. He's doing the spin-a-rooney. Rob Killjoy's doing the spin-a-rooney.
You once led the conga, if I'm not mistaken, after a match.
Yeah, we're just doing all this kind of weird stuff. And then after like, gosh, it's got to be like 6 minutes or something like that. Rob Killjoy looks up in the promoter. He goes, we're going to go long. And the promoter just gives a thumbs up. And then we end up going 30-something minutes in this match. And I love this match.
Is that the longest match of your career at that moment, right? In the pros, maybe not in the yard, but in the pros, I would think.
In the pros, I believe, yes, because we did have a 30-minute championship scramble once. So they definitely went exactly 30 minutes once. But I believe that one's the longest. I think they went like 30 or 32, something like that, 33.
Yeah.
Whatever the case may be. But that match, I absolutely love it because not only did it show our improv on the fly, it showed our comedy. It showed how we could have a super choreographed, like I like to call it X Division, super indie-rific type of situations and spots. We had slow motion. We had strong style. Like it was such a great showcase of what we could do at that time, as well as what they want to do. Like we gave them a run for their money, which is a lot to say because I've seen the Ugly Ducklings go almost an hour.
Well, I mean, listen, before. Listen, we love what you guys do in the ring, but you have a different style than them. You don't wrestle normally what they bring to the table, and I think that's why it made the match what it was because of what you guys wound up doing, and I think it shows that you guys aren't just comedic wrestlers. You guys aren't just, I feel like people sometimes get typecasted, and I think it's unfair because I think that what you guys do in the ring takes a lot of timing. I think that you guys really are a great team because you bring everything into it. Like we talked about the 31 flavors of wrestling. I think that for the wrestlers that watch this tonight, I hope that that's what they take away from it. Not just yes, it's Rad Dad's here, it's great, we love you, we do love you, but I also think that to take away from it that do different things, be able to be creative, be able to think about your match and think about that, if there's something that needs to be done on the fly, you can still do it, but, work with your opponents and, make sure that, you're on sync because that goes a long way. And I think that that's, to me, the advice that I would hope that people, gain. And I think that match showcased that the stepdads can do a lot of different things. And, let me ask you this question, and I don't think you get asked this a lot. And I want to say hello to my buddy, Stephen Silvestri, in a minute. He's the general manager for Resurrection Wrestling. I don't think you ever get asked this question also, but what is your goals for the rest of the year? I hear so many times, oh, you've done this, you and Wade. I want to get to the fun question of Rad Hazard versus Rad Hazard after this, but, what is your goals for this year? I feel like nobody ever asked you that question. And I'm like, why? Well, so what is your goal?
I mean, I've been asked that privately a bunch, but I don't know.
I ask every wrestler that comes on this platform, whether they're a pro, a yarder, underground, or independent. I've asked the same question to Dean Allmark or Sean Jovi, and I think that people would like to know what is Rad Dad's goals and what is the stepdad's goals this year. I think that's
I'll be very honest, and I think Wade will agree with me in the whole case. We're not looking to be in WWE. We're not looking to become millionaires. We're not looking to be, I'll put it this way. I want to do everything I can to leave a mark on wrestling.
But you're in. Well, to be fair, you are on GTS. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, let's be fair. You are on GTS, and nothing to sneeze
at. And to me, that's perfect. That's exactly the kind of place I want to be because I can make a mark there. People can remember what I did there. You know, I don't want to get too personal, but
no, don't do that.
Yeah, and a lot. I've had a lot
against you at Grimomania.
Oh no. I just want to say I've been in a lot of situations where members of my family have passed away.
I'm sorry.
And when they did, they didn't have a big funeral. They didn't have people messaging us. They didn't leave calls. They didn't leave messages. Like these people lived entire lives, and there was very little for them to show for it.
Unfortunately, as a newspaper carrier, you'll probably laugh. I've been to like hundreds of funerals because customers have died, and I've been to many of those where I showed up and it was like 5 people were there. I understand. I've been to like probably like 200 funerals. Yeah, it's very sad, honestly.
I just want to make. For my life and my family, I want to make a mark that when I'm gone, what I did will live on. You know?
But you've done that. I mean, you've wrestled the Rock and Roll Express. You've been in there with Hornswoggle, Sonny Kiss. I mean, you've been on Sportswire. I mean, you've been on Grim. Listen, you're a GTS, a double champion. You're in thousands, and your views are in the millions. It was not like, to me, you got a pretty good legacy. I gotta be honest. I mean, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your thing, but you actually have a legacy. No. Listen,
well, I agree.
You have a legacy. There is a legacy. You have something. You're a champion of a company that is number 7 in the world. I mean, like, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's like having a hit. I mean, to me, like, Grim gets, thousands of views each show, 1.3 million on one channel, 890,000 or whatever is on the other channel. I mean, like, you're on that show and you're a headlining match. So to me, like, I think you have a resume and a legacy. And I want to say hello to Steven. Steven says hello to you. And Levi McDaniel would like to comment. Love you from this interview. Wish you were closer to Iowa. Chill, humble, and no ego. No need for any goals other than personal ones. Just keep being you. Levi is also a very accomplished wrestler in his own right. He's also got a very accomplished YouTube channel, and he's always been a very straightforward guy from what I know, and I've had him on the platform, so that's pretty cool. And have you been to Iowa, by the way, to wrestle?
I've never actually been to Iowa. No, I've wrestled people from Iowa who literally drove there to wrestle me, but I've never been.
Well, speaking of that, that's a great segue because Mr. Sean Jovi, who regularly wrestles in Iowa, actually reviewed a match of yours. And if I don't bring it up, because I have Sean Jovi on the air Thursday night, Sean Jovi will never let me live this down. And I have to do what the resident rock star wants because he's in my Hall of Fame. And so I have to ask you, what was it like actually wrestling somebody with the same name as you? I mean, that's one for the ages, and maybe Undertaker versus Undertaker that happened. But other than that, there ain't too many of them last I checked. And so what was it like actually wrestling somebody with your name?
I mean, out of all the things I've done, like you said, I have done a lot of things.
You've done a lot.
Wrestling somebody who was pretending to be me in a mask might be the weirdest. Might be the strangest. The only difference between Rad Hazard and Rad Hazard was an extra Z.
I was leaving that out purposely because I was.
But he would wear a business suit like I did all the moves I did. He just wore a mask, so clearly he's me. Until I showed up in Chicago to challenge him. That was a very fun match. That match had what might be the longest lockup of my career. Where
really?
I locked up with the guy. We went to each corner, fell out of the ring, still locked up, went around the outside of the house. I think we went into a garage, came back out, went back into the ring, and then broke it at 9. broke the count.
There it is.
Super silly.
I thought I would surprise you and go, surprise.
Oh, my goodness.
There it is. Sean Jovi was actually, he just commented. I'm like, let me do a.
Look at that shirt. I was so thin back then. I had no muscle definition at all.
We talked about it at the beginning of the show. You're not in bad shape right now. You've come back.
Well, yeah, but I got the father figure now. Thank goodness.
Well, you're back at it, and you got the look of the day back then. You got that look, that look.
I'm pretty sure this match ends with me putting Rad Hazard in the sharpshooter, and then he taps out with one finger. Just one finger.
Like a Jimmy Snuka tap out.
All he needed was one.
That's all he needed, and that was it. What a silly match. I love this entire week. I was in Chicago for the entire week, wrestled for the MWA, the Midwest Wrestling Alliance.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was the Battleborn Wrestling World Champion at the time, so I defended that all over the place. I ended up losing it to Matt DeMorris in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, but this was one of my defenses in Chicago. I think I had 2 defenses in Chicago. There he is. Oh, wait, no, that's somebody else. I thought that was me for a second. And he's got my belt. That was another funny thing. So my belt was missing, and he finds my belt because, of course, he's Red Hazard. So also he comes out with my faction, who are very confused because obviously it should be me, but it's not me. Only in wrestling can you do something like this.
When you see this back on the screen, and I know Sean has reviewed this, and I'm sure you know about it, but when you see this on the screen here live, what does that mean to you, to like where we are today and such? I'm not going to play the whole thing, but just
it blows my mind that I did any of this, to be honest, because I am just a guy that lived in Vegas. I didn't know any of these people personally. I watched them on YouTube and commented, and I was on a message board. And just because I took a chance, I would fly out to these shows. And this was one of the few early ones. I think this might have been like the 3rd one I flew out to, maybe 4th.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty early in there, and I think it's 2012.
Yeah, I think it's July 2012, if I stand corrected. And Sean Dovey will certainly tell me, but I'm pretty sure it's July 2012.
And I'm hanging out with like the guy that would create freelance wrestling, Matt Nix, that day, just hanging out. Like we didn't think anything of it back then, and now there's so many successful guys. A lot of the people in this video right now still wrestle today in Chicago area.
Wow.
It's so cool to see. So this is funny. Right here, I'm saying that this belt is a part of me, and now we're doing poses. But I start to say this belt is a part of me, and he starts attacking the belt, which hurts me because the belt's a part of me. Really weird match, but a lot of fun. And I think that's a part of wrestling that we forget sometimes, that Chikara style where they have like people coming from the past and from the future and all that. Like there's a place in wrestling for that,
Well, we always talk about on this platform about storytelling. They're always so if it's relevant to the match, if it's relevant to the moment, why not? Why not into that moment? And this was one of those moments that you had, and Sean Dovey wanted to say, look at the guy in the gold and brown. He also said coming out with the fake rad.
Yeah. And even back then, which I still recommend everyone do, when you're having a match, doesn't matter what the match is, who the match is, ask yourself, what's the story here? What do I want to tell the fans here? I probably could have wrestled anybody on this show and had like this crazy match. And it's like, all right, I would have had a good match, but this tells such a story that it's memorable. This is what, 12 years ago? This is a long time
almost
ago.
11 and a half. Yeah, 11 and a half.
Yeah. And people still talk about this silly match with I'm just remembering now how ridiculously heavy that belt was. It was like an 8-pound belt.
I was going to ask you, do you still keep in touch with any of these, people in the ring or your opponent?
I don't think he's on camera right now, but Jeff Steeples still wrestles out there. I talk to him once in a while.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I want to say the referee is Brett Scharnhorst, who I still talk to every once in a while. I could be wrong. It's just really bad video, but like these are people that it's one of those things where
I have a question. This is why wrestling is a really small world for a second.
Sure.
Levi McDaniel wants to say, might have met you at Midwest Wrestling Alliance. Been wrestling for them for years. You look different. What do you want to say?
It's possible. This was my only weekend wrestling there, so it depends on if he was there or not for this 2012 thing. But
yeah, tell us.
It's very possible. I run into people all the time where they go, I met you here, I met you there, and it's so cool.
Are you becoming now like, I don't remember and forget? Are you becoming that type?
Oh, geez. Maybe once in a while. But
at least you won't have Jimmy controversies like ADD. At least you won't have that, right? Like the Jimmy controversy.
No. I've not landed on my head as much as Jimmy controversy. I win the matches, so I'm not the guy that lands on his head. You know what I'm saying?
Good point. But Jimmy, I'd speak to him, then it's like, boom, boom. Okay, moves on. It's like, okay. I love you, Jimmy. Don't worry, it's okay. I'm here. I'm listening to you. But
Like even as like just thinking of it from a pro worker's perspective, we've been screwing around here for like 6 minutes and we haven't bumped yet. You know what I mean?
The Rock and Roll Express match, you guys didn't really touch much in that match. You
No.
wrestled 16 minutes. You might have touched, I don't know, 3.5 minutes, maybe. I don't know, whatever.
Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, somebody can count, but like you didn't touch that much in that match. I mean, I don't think that touching. People talk about all the time, I got to do this spot. I got to do that spot. I don't think you necessarily have to do that for the match to be great. I mean, no. I cover sports all the time, and sometimes great matchups are where people just do the little things that they remember. And I think that's the same thing, in a wrestling match. And I think that shows like, what you guys are doing. That's maybe the early days of some of the things, you incorporate today. And I think that's why I wanted to pull it up on the screen, really also for Sean Jovi, really, just to show that moment. And here you are then, and look at where you are now. I mean, I think, listen, I know you said you don't want to be in WWE, but to me, I think you've made it because you're in a company that's, number 7 in the world. To me, that's making it. I think that, people have definitions of the way they've made it. I think to me that, again, what do I know, right? I'm not a wrestler. I wouldn't pretend to say I have any idea, any knowledge of anything, but I believe from my book that you've made it in the world. And I think that, the record will speak for itself. And I just wanted to show this match to show, what you were then and, where you are now.
I always want to think about it like this. I'm a big follower of Terry Funk's history and what he did and what he believed in. And Terry Funk was the NWA World Champion, I believe, in like 1975, 76.
Oh, this for like a while, yeah.
Right. That would be kind of like, oh, you're GTS champion, and that's such a great
that's a good
thing.
line.
A lot of pride, right? I have a ridiculous amount of pride for this. That being said, that wasn't the end for Terry Funk. He went on to do tons of stuff in All Japan and change that industry.
He did movies over the top. Sylvester Stallone had a run in WWF at the time, came back to NWA. Certainly ECW had the major comeback and won the world title. They had another run as Chainsaw Charlie, WCW, and kept, going and going. And Levi McDaniel actually wants to say what a small world wrestling is. August 18th, 2012, MWA, some Chicago suburb, sounds about right. Was before I got sober. I was probably fill in the blanks or stayed to myself. And, okay. Sean Jovi said, I was there also. To see what I mean? This is what it's about tonight. People that know each other now didn't realize they were there in the same building, and they're friends now. And you're here, and you say it all the time, and I'm sure it happens to you all the time. Before I get to a few more things and we sign off for the evening, is that you are in locker rooms all the time with somebody you recognize, somebody oh yeah, I know you from the yard, I wrestled you here, and I think that's what wrestling to me is about. And I want to say this before I get to a few more things and sign off for the evening. I really hope that people take away from tonight. Yes, it's an absolute honor to have you. I can't stress enough that your graciousness to have spent as much time that you've been with us, especially considering who you are and what you do. But I think that wrestling should be about bringing people together. People should forget about whatever that they had that was going on that they disagreed with or they agreed with, or forget about it. To me, life is short. At the end of the day, wrestling is where everybody can have a place. Wrestling is about all wrestling that matters, and all voices should be in the same room, because if we're all together, we'll be big as one. But if we're not, we're going to be as small as an ant, and we're just going to be stepped on. And I hope that at the end of the day, that's the message that I hope that people see from you tonight. I want to ask you a few more questions, and certainly going into the evening. Give me your final thoughts, first of all, going into Grimomania for Mikey Anarchy.
So when it comes to Mikey Anarchy, I feel like I've said all I can say. I swore at him on the show. Rad Dad doesn't swear. I always say, don't swear on camera. Like, you gotta be prim and proper. Come on, be a real gentleman.
I appreciate that, because I've been on the air for over 5 years and I've never swore once.
There you go.
Never once.
So it's very rare for me to lose my temper like that. So I hope Mike Anarchy learned a lesson I learned, because I'm always trying to be a role model and teach people. Mike Anarchy, don't lose your cool. when you lose at Grimomania. I want you to focus that into something productive. Maybe a future Pro Wrestling Venom title match, or maybe a UWF.
Well, he's got the
title match
TF Crew YouTube title match against Angel Santiago on June 15th. I mean,
and I hope he's just as successful doing that. But he's going to have to learn that things aren't going to always go his way. Right now, everything's going Mikey Anarchy's way. He needs to crash back down to earth and learn a lesson from the Rad Dad. Don't get mad, get glad, learn from it, and move on. That's going to be the lesson Mikey Anarchy learns.
Well, you know what? Maybe it's a stepping stone. Maybe Angel Santiago is certainly secretly rooting for you in a small way, because he's got him, next. Although Angel Santiago's got celebrity boxing before that, which I'm not going to ask you a thought or two on that, but he's doing celebrity boxing. And Jimmy Controversy was like on the air Wednesday, I want to be in his corner. I'm like, okay, well, I'm sure Angel will certainly take a note on that, but I'm not going to go there. What some people should take away from tonight is to stay humble and have fun. It's a work. Let's not take ourselves so seriously. Rad Dad is golden. Amen. I couldn't say it better myself. I have to ask.
I always say this. I never take myself seriously, ever. But I take my wrestling seriously. That's how you should live.
I couldn't agree with you more. Then I have to ask you a fun question before we sign off. I'm sure you get asked about this, but how did you incorporate the Full House intro into Billy Squire? It's like the two most like polar opposites. It's like, whatever happened to you? I remember like Full House and we go from TGIF to then like Billy Squire of like,
it just fit to me. It just fit to me. I will say last weekend we wrestled for, I'll just throw it out there. Legacy is Timeless in Connecticut.
Yes. We
came out to the Rocky theme song, a cover of the Rocky theme. Yeah.
Why?
So we got some other dad rock going on. We're trying different things, seeing what people like. It gets me pumped, I'll tell you that. So,
Rocky would definitely get me far more pumped up. Eye of the Tiger verse, let's say.
We would do just the Full House theme, but YouTube doesn't quite like that. So we kind of go with just the beginning of the theme. You know what I mean?
But yeah, I mean, but it is kind of like, to me, like you are still able to pull it off. We go into like that, like, I don't know, it's 10 seconds of the Full House. And I'm thinking like, for whatever reason, like the bridge and like they're driving on it. Then it's like, but then we go into Billy Squire, which for me is like the total definition of like classic rock radio. It's like, I don't know how these guys are able to like mesh them into one, and yet you pull it off almost.
It's our vibe. That's what we do.
I do like the Billy Squire version more than the Full House one. I like the Billy Squire one a little more. The Billy Squire. Okay, fair enough. So we obviously got that in the books. So we'll see what you do in the future. I want to ask you, for me, one of the last questions. And again, I could ask you 1,000 of them, but I don't have a voice really much left after this. And you have to go prepare for Grimomania. But I have to ask, we obviously honored you. And I want to put this back up here on the stage for people to know that's obviously your day. I'll send this to you personally after we're off the air. But you and Wade have certainly done a lot. And obviously the next time I'd like you to come onto the platform, I'd like you to come with your tag team partner. But in addition to that, because obviously guys like Sean Jovi are in this, we have this thing called the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. And, to me, the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame has been about the definition of all wrestling that matters, and wrestlers that have gone out there, whether it's in the backyard, the underground, the independents, the pros, wherever you've been, and you've done it for the reasons that, well, I think, frankly, the stepdads have done it, and you guys have figuratively and literally pretty much done all of that. You've gone from GTS to Rock and Roll Express to the Yard. We just saw some of that from Sean Jovi, and places like EBW Pro, which are in between, and I'm sure about 100 other places like Warriors of Wrestling. You've even wrestled a guy I interviewed once upon a time, Steve Off. I'm certainly, I can probably go with more people that you probably know and I know, but I wanted to ask you, especially for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, where all wrestling matters, if you would accept not only yourself, but also your tag team partner, Papa Bear himself, Wade Kruger, for both of you guys to be inducted into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame as the stepdads.
Oh my goodness, there's no question about it. Absolutely. I mean, we're also believers that all wrestling matters. This is right up our alley. I mean, it's a huge honor. Thank you.
Well, I hope that we can make that happen in, the next, month or so. And, when your time allots, and you guys are the definition of, working wrestlers, almost like a working man's band. And you guys are that. And I would like to, have you guys both on and, have you guys on together and formally induct you guys into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. So it would be an absolute, pleasure and honor. And, I just wanted to have that and see if you would accept. So I hope we can make that happen very soon. And I appreciate that. So I want to ask you then one more question before closing thoughts. And I want to ask you this, and obviously we'll pull up your links in a second, but what do you want to say as two-part fold? What advice would you give to anybody that's watching this tonight? And also, what do you want to say to all of your fans out there, everybody that supported you, whether it's with the stepdads, whether it's through the yard, whether it's in GTS? And, so I would say, again, twofold, what do you would give advice to anybody watching this that's certainly a colleague or, in the yard? And also, what do you want to say to your fans that have supported you throughout this journey?
I mean, outside of what I said about always trying to fix corrections in your matches and how no match is perfect, so don't beat yourself up about it. I would also say always remember that there are plenty of opportunities out there if you go after them. And I've seen it firsthand. I've seen many people get incredible, I won't go into details, but they've gotten incredible opportunities on and off television just because they were in the room at the right time. And you might have to do 50 different odd jobs where you're helping the ring crew or you're just wherever. But once you're in the room at the right time, you're up here, it never goes back down. You always have that moment, that opportunity, that match that never goes away. Every time you win a championship, every time you're on TV, that's another notch on your belt that nobody can ever take away. Like I said, I'm always trying to build some sort of legacy that people remember me from. I want as many of those opportunities as possible. And I want you guys to have as many of those opportunities as possible as well. Always improve. Always look at correcting mistakes because that's the true mark of a wrestler. Always look for opportunities. That's absolutely what I would say to them. And to my fans, I hope tonight the story has been shown that I was just a kid living in a house in the middle of the desert where to have an independent show in Las Vegas, you'd have to spend $5,000 to pay the commission. And guess what? Absolutely no company was doing that. So there was no wrestling out there.
I just want to say real quick before, I hate when I hear stories from people from all over the place with these ridiculous rules or ridiculous fees.
Mm-hmm.
Not to, go on too much in the weeds with that, but it makes no sense. That stuff, I don't want to go into the weeds with it, but it's like these places all over the place. They need a doctor there. They need this. They need that. It's like, I don't get it. I don't want to.
I've seen a lot of that with New York wrestling.
New York. There's never been really a backyard scene in New York, and the independent scene here is like. My friend was I have a friend that was trained by the Amazing Red from House of Glory, and I watched a couple of his shows a few years back, and it was like I interviewed him, and it was like the independent scene in New York is just. I don't even want to go there.
I will throw out an old wrestling company from New York area called 2KW. Just Google 2KW on YouTube, and you'll see guys like Santana and Ortiz, who were a part of the GYW, and having incredible matches in a playground in New York City. Incredible stuff. Some of the
New York City, we never had back. It's funny you said that because we never really had. I never remember it's also because in New York City most people don't have backyards, so it's like we really can't have backyards. But even like anything, I don't remember backyard wrestling ever being a thing here. I don't know.
That's the only one I remember. It was in the Little Flower Playground. I remember that.
I feel like I heard of that Little Flower. I think I know where that is. What a small world. But I think you can certainly all those things here. Most importantly, please subscribe to the Stepdads YouTube page. I'm going to put up one more time all the links for the Stepdads and, of course, Radley. He's just hours away before Grimomania 8. He's putting up his championship on the line in a ladder match against Mikey Anarchy. And it has been an absolute honor, champ, to have you here on the floor. The next time we're going to have you here with your tag team partner, inducting you into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. But I'd like to now give you the floor. I'd like to give you some closing thoughts and anything else you want to plug, share, or say. The floor is absolutely yours, and fire away.
Well, I will throw out the plugs real quick. You can find me on Pro Wrestling Tees, Stepdads Wrestling. Everything, Instagram, you can see it right here. TikTok, all of them, Stepdads Wrestling, one word. I will say, if you put Stepdads Wrestling and put a little space between those, we are not liable for what weird stuff you find. I'm sorry. It's Stepdads Wrestling, all one word, okay, folks? But I just to finish what I was saying about those fans, I was just a guy in Las Vegas. There was no wrestling around me, and I still found a way to be here on the number 7 YouTube show with you right now, talking about a future Hall of Fame induction, talking about how I got to wrestle my literal favorite tag team of all time, the Rock and Roll Express, how I got to twerk in the ring with Sonny Kiss, how I got to joke around with Hornswoggle. Like, I shouldn't be here, but I am. And anybody else who wants to be in this position, who wants to be in GTS, they want to be in WWE, they want to, I don't know, twerk with Sonny Kiss, I guess. Like, whatever you want to do, you can do it. And I'm living proof of that. I should not be in this house right now. I should be across the country, somewhere in Las Vegas. I don't know, being a trucker or something. I don't know. But here I am living my dream. So whatever your dream is, it can really come true, because I am living proof of a guy that got everything he wanted, and all he did was put in the work. And you can do it.
And I think that's what wrestling is about. You can connect with people in ways you would have never imagined. Listen, I grew up in Brooklyn, right? I was, born in Brooklyn, New York, right? I wouldn't want to say life was horrible, but, you would have asked me as a kid, would I be speaking to, people like Dean Allmark? Would I be speaking to somebody like yourself, the number 7 wrestling company in all of YouTube? Would I be speaking with people around the world? I would have said, you have a bridge to sell me, right? I mean, are you on drugs? I mean, it would have been never thought about it. There was never those possibilities. It was just the only possibilities were, you were lucky to have a roof over your head, and, you just thanked, your lucky stars. You had whatever you had, but, you just never know. And it's all about networking, and, people can be found in many ways. And, you are the definition of many ways of an American dream, a true small business success story, because you did it your own way. And you did it with a tag team partner that believed in you and believed in your journey. You obviously were fighting each other, but you worked so well with each other that you wound up forming this tag team that's wound up becoming one of the most successful tag teams right now in all of wrestling. You're a part of the number 7th most viewed company in the world in wrestling. You're going to wrestle a match that's going to be the biggest one yet of your career, but also maybe your most biggest viewed in your career. And the sky is only going to be bigger from here. And you're going to be in more places like TF Crew, which I love what they're doing, like Gabe Sayers, and other places that we may see you. And you've wrestled the Rock and Roll Express. So at the end of the day, to me, you've got a legacy, and that's going to be cemented and fulfilled when we get to allow you to take your place into the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame next time. Ladies and gentlemen, you can follow Rad Dad in all those links below. My friend, it has been an absolute honor to have you. I can't thank you enough for all the things you've said, all the things you've done for us, everything that you've been in terms of your time, your graciousness, but also, just most importantly, being an inspiration to many people that have watched this, but also being the definition of all wrestling matters. I want to say congratulations on your current success. Congratulations on your future success. Good luck out there at Grimomania 8. I definitely want to have you on well in advance before TF Crew Death Row, and just thank you for all that you do, and I just can't thank you enough, and I hope to see you very soon, this time with your tag team partner, Papa Bear himself, and you guys have definitely proved that you no longer are the god of the dad bod. You've got the wrestle bod. You've got more than a daditude. This was definitely in front of a live studio audience, but the best studio audience I think you've ever been on in a podcast, and congratulations, and thank you so much for all you've done here for us in this great sport.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm so happy I got to do this tonight with you and with all the people that commented tonight, and anybody who watches after the fact.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people. We had 30-something people at one point, and I didn't even do anything. So Sean Jovi says much love. I'm going to see him Thursday. And ladies and gentlemen, this was
love you too, Sean,
the GTS IC and US champion, one half of the Stepdads, the longest reigning GTS IC champion in history. His name is Mr. Rad Dad Radley Belmont. You are going to see him in the ring coming up at Grimomania just hours from now against Mikey Anarchy in a ladder match for his championships. You can certainly find out more information on his social media pages and all Grimm's Toy Show related information on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, he's on it. And also on this day It is Rad Dad Radley Belmont Day. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, All Wrestling Matters. I usually go on the air after Raw, but I don't have much of a voice tonight, so you're going to have to wait until tomorrow. So maybe I'll talk about some Raw tomorrow night. I do need to rest my voice because my voice is pretty much shot, because that intro I gave tonight, I gave it everything I had. I basically swung for the fences, and I think I hit one out of the park. But it's not about me. It's about Rad Dad Radley Belmont. Thank you, everybody here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. On the number one global station that is Sportzwire Radio, where all wrestling matters. And go support the stepdads, because they'll come after you with that attitude. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see everyone, and God bless, and thank you for your support over the years.